welcome to the executive session of the Sparta Township Planning Board. This, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act statement, adequate notice of this public meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Formal action may or may not be taken. This other thing to read. Whereas NJS 2:4-12, Open Public Meeting Act, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Township of Sparta, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of an action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows: contract negotiations. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public when deemed appropriate. The resolution shall take effect immediately. May I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Thank you. All right.
You're gonna have to sit in
Oh,
the jury
want me to
box.
Open this door?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to sit in the jury box over away from everyone.
Right. Okay.
Or we call it the witness stand.
Ron wants to know what you have.
Am I allowed to?
I have no idea what I think sign is.
Oh.
HIPAA violation.
That's right.
I had the flu like a month ago and it was like, it lasts for, it's only a couple days of like temperature and everything else.
Yeah.
And then you have a cough for 3 weeks.
We're live.
I just have this headache right here. It's just killing me.
But
Hmm.
That's it.
Did you grab a packet from over there?
Grab everything. I didn't touch anything.
Oh, 'cause I had a packet
It's
over
still
there.
there.
No, it was two.
Hello, everyone.
how you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Rich. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great.
Do you want to keep it this way?
Would you like us to turn?
Oh, yes, please. How's your hand?
Much better, thank you. Nice, yeah.
It's time to do it before your binder gets put down at
Yeah.
5 tons.
Yeah, add an extra 5 pounds to the table.
All right, thank you, everybody, sorry about the wait. But on behalf of the members of the Planning Board and our professionals, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's meeting of the Sparta Township Planning Board. This meeting is being held on February 19th, 2025, at the Sparta Township Municipal Building located at 65 Main Street in Sparta. Proceedings of the meeting are being live streamed on YouTube at www.youtube.com/@SpartaTWP. The time is now 7:32, and this meeting is now called to order. Please note that no new business will be conducted after 9:30, and the meeting will end at 10. Please stand and join the board as we proudly pledge our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. All right, Raisha, roll call, please.
Ernie Ragsdale,
Here.
Robert Bleakley,
Here.
Vice Chairman Robert Otto,
Here.
Chairwoman Joan Furman,
Here.
Councilman Mark Scott,
Here.
Ron Day,
Here.
Jeanette Burt,
Here.
This got canceled.
Celeste Luciano,
Here.
We're going to announce it.
Yeah. We have a few changes to the agenda. First, we're going to have a motion. We had an executive session and we interviewed a board attorney. And so we are going to take a motion with regard to that. With regard to the public hearings, tonight we will be hearing NPS Properties. At the last minute, Firehouse Apartments said that they could not be here tonight, so we are going to move them, and we're still trying to decide when. It looks like it might be April, but we'll have to get a date because we are booked with one of the ones that we carried from today that we could have heard.
But we should announce that date formally now,
Formally?
so they don't have to renotice.
Okay, then the first date in April, let's see. Would be April 2nd, Wednesday, April 2nd. That's our next planning board meeting
Okay, so,
for March.
mind if I announce it?
Go, please.
All right, so if there's any member of the public here with respect to the application filed by Firehouse Apartments LLC for 23 West Shore Trail, that application is not being heard this evening. It will be heard instead on April 2nd, 2025, in this room, commencing at 7 PM, and there'll be no further notices from the applicant. Okay,
Mr. Aller,
yes.
is there a way, do we have to hear that in April? Can we decline hearing that application?
No, you have to hear it.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to hear it on April 2nd, but if, if there's a different date, if the April 2nd agenda becomes full or whatever, you have to push it again, you could do that. But the reason I wanted to announce it was so the applicant didn't have to renotice the 200-foot list, and they don't have to republish,
Okay, thank you.
okay? There is one other thing, I'm sorry, but I think that's Madison Hooker, that's yours, right? So I'm not sure we are on time for that application. Can we have an agreement that time is extended through, let's go through May, right? So May 31st for time extension? Okay, thank you.
And that's on which one?
That's on Firehouse Apartments,
Okay, it's extended to May?
May 31st.
May 31st, okay. The green is also not on the agenda. They are postponed till March 5th.
Fine. Okay, so can I announce that one
Yes.
as well? All right, so again, any member of the public who's here for the Green 973 LLC for property at 10 Park Lake Road, that application is not being heard this evening. It instead will be heard on March 5th, 2025, commencing at 7 PM in this room, and there'll be no further notices from the applicant.
And then the last change will be the Colonier Machine and Design, Inc. We're going to move that first under the public hearings.
Yeah, so with respect to, well, I'm not sure what I did with that letter, I guess, but, sorry, I have it back here. Okay, so with respect to the application for Colonier Machine, 11 Wilson Drive, according to the letter from Ms. Hooker, there was a preliminary and final site plan approval on April 7th, 2021. The board maybe is aware, the approvals don't expire, the zoning protection expires. All right, so since they did the final at the same time, a final site plan approval has a 2-year protection, right? So the law also allows the applicant to get 3 one-year extensions. So the third extension, even though the first 2 weren't technically applied for, they're sort of applying for all 3 of them right now, to get them out to April of '26. So if the board agrees to the extension, it would be through April 21st, 2026, and that would be their last available extension. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I guess, we'll begin, and as I said, the first thing we're going to do is entertain a motion to hire Mr., well, I shouldn't make the motion. Would anybody like to make a motion to hire a board attorney?
I'd like to make a motion to hire Ken Foro as the planning board attorney.
I'll second it.
Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Mark Scott,
Yes.
Jeanette Burt,
Yes.
Ron Day,
Abstain?
Robert Bleakley,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Ernie Ragstat,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Robert Otto,
Yes.
Chairwoman Joan Furman.
Yes.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, is that going to start March 5th at
Yes.
the next meeting? Okay,
Yes.
good. Not good, no, I don't mean it that way, it's just so I know.
Okay. All right, so we'll start with Colonier.
Well, what do you want to do with, Colonier, yes.
Welcome. Good
evening, members of the board. My name is Madison Hooker. I'm from the law firm Skank Price Smith and King, and I represent the applicant, Colonier Machine and Designing.
I apologize. Could you please use the microphone?
Sit.
Thank you so much.
Makes it easier. This application concerns property located at 11 Wilson Drive in Sparta in the ED zone. The applicant, as you guys have just heard, received approvals for preliminary and final site plan and C variances in 2021, and the applicant is requesting an extension of those approvals. As some of you may remember, the time period that this application was approved during was a time of high inflation and high cost of construction. And so the applicant is just requesting additional time while it continues to work through the business decisions so that it can complete the required construction. And like we said, the applicant is entitled to 3 one-year extensions, and although we didn't apply for the other 2, we would like to have it extended to 2026, so.
Right down with Celeste. Any questions?
No, I'm good for the moment. Thank you.
Nothing right now.
If, I guess the answer is obvious, but if you didn't apply for an extension, it doesn't automatically
Your
cancel because
approvals
it's
don't
the
expire.
zoning.
Right, it's the zoning change that is protected, right?
Okay. I would have one question then about the changes to maybe design standards or other things that occurred during that time. Would they be subject to any new standards that were put in place since 2021?
So if there's construction standards that have changed,
I think we did
they would.
something with landscaping, new standards.
So if it's just a landscaping plan, then whatever was approved, it's still the same landscaping plan that was approved.
So this would protect them from ordinance 2221, whatever it was, hold on. There was an ordinance change to the ED zone. This would effectively protect them from that because this approval was prior to that.
Right.
Can we make it a condition of approval tonight?
That
To-
they'd basically have to come back before the board, which is what I think what they're requesting, an extension of the original approval, so they don't have to come back before the board. So I think effectively, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but effectively you vote no on this if that's what you wanted.
Okay. I'll think about that. Thank you. I'm sorry, I should skip to you first.
This is, I don't know, a common question, so if I need to save this later, just let me know. You know, I do have some concerns being that 2221 has changed the zone in regard to warehousing and that type of stuff. And trying to get the information on exactly what was approved this week. I finally got something right before the meeting. So I'd really like to understand if we approve it, what it is we're approving, what were the variances and how does it compare to 2221, as well as we're going into a master plan update. So I just think personally, I'd be more comfortable with a 1-year approval right now as opposed to a 3-year approval.
Well, would be
only a
1
1
year
year.
from,
Yeah,
Hit
it's
the 1
only
year
a
left
1
on.
year.
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're not approving all 3 years in one
Right.
shot?
Well,
already
they
done
never
it.
really asked for the other 2.
Okay.
Right,
sure.
so
Okay.
what you would do now at this point is they're asking you to give them the 3 years from 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so their 2021 approval would have expired in 2023.
Right.
All right, and in 2023, they could get a 1-year extension to April of '24, and then a second 1-year extension till April of '25. And now they're saying, hey, we want to come in and for our third 1-year extension
So we're
through
approving
April
it
of
through
'26.
26.
Correct.
Thank you.
April 26th.
Nothing?
No, nothing. from me.
Need a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll see if anybody
I'd-
else-
Just make a
I'd
motion.
like to make a motion that we approve the extension through April 21, 2026 for Collier Machine and Design Incorporated, which is PB number 686.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Mark Scott,
He's
He left. He's sick.
Jeanette Burke,
Yes.
Ron Day,
Yes.
Robert Bleakley,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Ernie Ragsdale,
yes.
Vice Chairman Robert Otto,
Yes.
Chairwoman Joan Furman.
Yes. Okay,
Thank
motion
you.
passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'd like to welcome back NPS Properties.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Bankendorf from Askin and Hooker, located in Sparta, New Jersey. Here on behalf of NPS, better known as Nicolak Paving Stones. Here on their behalf is Nino Nicola. And if I could, I'd like to, my client remains sworn in from the last time we were here,
We'll
but
do it again.
you want to do it again?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to swear in my client then, and then we can also have our experts
Why don't we
provide
just
their.
do everybody at the same time?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
So whoever it is, why don't we come on up?
So it's Mike Fisher and Fred Wara.
Okay. Would you all stand, raise your right hand? I'm going to swear in the board professionals as well, in case there's testimony as we go along. So if everyone would stand, raise your right hands. Yeah, Dave, I swear in the board professionals too, sorry. So if you raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And from my left to right, just for the record, names, please,
Nino Nicolia.
and spell your last name?
Nicolia.
Michael Fisher, Fisher.
David B. Simmons Jr., Simmons.
Catherine Sarmad, board planner.
Thank you.
Mr. Ollier, would you like them to provide their credentials now? so
Only
that-
when they come up to testify.
Understood.
Yep,
Thank you so
thank you.
much. Gentlemen, be seated. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we're here to discuss 9 Park Lake Road, Block 16003, Lot 7, currently an undeveloped 1.855 acre lot in the ED Economic Development Zone. This application is nearly identical to an application that was approved back in 2020. It was approved with 4 tenants at that time, and also no landscaping, or essentially no landscaping at that time. When I was last here before the board, on January 15, 2025, I opened the application with my client's testimony. He was seeking an application to amend the approved site plan in further compliance with Sparta ED zone, and construct a single-tenant building with indoor storage, showroom, and office space. My client testified the last time that we're here that the building itself was going to be used to market its higher-end grills, pizza ovens, implements that were associated with their building block. And at that time, the applicant agreed to the following conditions, that there was going to be no outdoor storage, that deliveries were going to be staggered, that trucks were going to be turned off during deliveries and while they were parked. There was going to be no overnight parking. There was going to be 2 to 3 deliveries per day or pickups per day. It was going to be approximately 3 tractor-trailer trucks per week. The hours of operation were going to be from 7 to 4. There was going to be no hazardous materials stored on site. We believed at most there would be approximately 2 clients at any given time because the clients, their appointments would be staggered because they would make appointments to be there. There were going to be no sales on site. There were going to be approximately 4 employees. And we provided 20 spots, but really we were looking at approximately 6 spots were needed for what this applicant was doing on site. And we know this because they're operating in a similarly situated building. And so they know exactly the amount of people that would be coming and going on a regular basis and the amount of trucks that would be coming and going on a regular basis. That's how we can be so sure of it. And then I think the last thing is no sales will actually be made directly from this site. It's designed to showcase these implements and then additionally train like retailers. And I think the last time we were here, I spoke about like maybe someone like Wingle might come here to see a new grill that they're showcasing, learn how to use the grill, and then they would say, we need, 24 units, and they would leave. And then at some point in time, they would have those delivered to Wingle Supply Company, but they wouldn't actually be picking them up that day. So, Nino, you've heard my recantation of what we discussed that first meeting. Is that an accurate representation? Do you wish that to be your testimony this evening?
Yes.
Okay,
I'd rather him
okay,
testify, not
That's fine.
just say what you said is good.
okay.
Yeah.
Just repeat everything you
Well,
just said.
I'll just ask the questions. Mr. Nicola, is there going to be any outdoor storage?
No.
Will deliveries be staggered?
Yes.
Will the trucks be turned off during deliveries?
Yes.
Is there going to be any overnight parking?
No.
Are there 2 to 3 deliveries per day?
Yes.
Will there be approximately 3 total tractor-trailer truck deliveries per week?
Yes.
Are the hours of operation 7 to 4?
Yes.
Are there going to be any hazardous materials stored on site?
No.
At most, are we looking at approximately 2 client vehicles at any given time parked on site?
Yes, at most.
Okay. And at most, are we looking at 4 employee vehicles parked on site at any given time?
Yes.
Okay. And are we providing 20 spots?
Yes.
And you have a good understanding of how this will operate because you are currently operating in a similarly sized and situated building, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there will be no sales directly to clients on site, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Could you just describe what do you mean by staggered deliveries?
The deliveries will be scheduled to come in at certain times so that due to we're not stuck unloading multiple trucks stacked one after another. So they would be scheduled, one for 8 a.m., one for 1 p.m., one for 3 p.m., something like that.
So you're saying there's one delivery truck on site at any
No,
particular time?
most of the deliveries would come in from outside companies. We would occasionally have our own truck, maybe for an internal transfer or something like that.
So staggered deliveries is on your end?
Yes,
Like,
receiving.
your-
Yeah, receiving staggered deliveries.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So if the board has any more questions for my client, now would be a great time to ask.
Rob, you want to start us off?
I'm fine, thank you.
Rob? Bravo.
Just refamiliarizing myself. I'll yield to Celeste if she's got anything.
I'm actually going to wait for our professionals to potentially weigh in because I think they'll have any better questions than I will.
Why don't we go to the professionals and then we'll come back?
Sure. Thank you, board members. Just referring to my report of October 23rd, 2024, at this time, I think most of my comments are related to engineering matters as opposed to the operation. The one thing that the applicant did point out is the maximum number of parking spaces that they anticipated they were going to need, because as I went through the parking requirement and the impervious coverage, they did have a smaller size and less than what was required by the ordinance. So basically, I had pointed out that based on the size of the building, bear with me, I'll find it here in a second, they were supposed to have a certain number of parking spaces And they are providing less than what's required, but based on their testimony, they've got sufficient according to their testimony. The rest of the items I'm sorry, I had calculated 36 parking spaces were required. They're proposing 20, which needs a waiver. But again, if the board's satisfied with their explanation of what they physically need for their proposed operation, that's one thing. With regards to the parking, I know Mr. Fisher, their engineer, is here later that will testify, and there are a couple other waivers that are required, but I'd hold those comments off if it's all right to the board the time when he testifies. That's all I have of this applicant.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, board members. I think you just mentioned that the hours of operation are going to be 7 to 4?
Right.
Okay, I had in my notes from last meeting that was 9 to 4. Would there be, okay,
Yeah, no, that didn't change. That was the same as we provided testimony last meeting.
okay, I might have just misheard at the last meeting, that's fine. This is gonna be probably a question for the professionals, but it's not really technical in nature, so I thought I'd ask it. Has anything changed about the design of the building from the prior approval?
That's more for the engineer.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I have nothing else then, thank you.
Nothing.
Ernie?
Nothing.
Nope, I'm good. Have anything either, thank you.
All right. So I'd like to call up our engineer, and we can, since he's,
Oh, so, yes.
oh,
Swearing me in.
It's questions only.
Yes.
You don't have
Can
to
I
be
just
sworn
swear
in
in?
for a
Okay.
question.
I just have a quick question. What is the size of the existing facility that you currently operate out of?
I believe it's just over 10,000 square feet, but I don't know exactly off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
all right, so Mike, if you'll approach, you can go take a seat if you want. God bless you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, while he's getting set up, what was the date of the first hearing?
January 15th, 2025.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Yep. I'll hand out the copies. Is this both of them?
Yeah, they're stapled.
Let's take the credentials first. Because these are new exhibits, so we'll have to label them. Mr. Ollier, would you like me to question him for credentials?
Yeah, you can just tell us about your professional background and education, please, that's good.
All right, I have a engineering degree from NJIT, graduated in 2011, I think. It's been so long, I don't remember anymore. I sat for and passed the PE exam in 2014. I've been a practicing engineer in good standing ever since in Morris, Passaic, Bergen, Union, Sussex counties, and Hunterdon.
And your license is current in New Jersey?
Yes, it is.
You've provided testimony before other boards in Sussex County?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever provided testimony before this board in Sussex County?
I don't remember if it was the planning board or it was the land use, or I'm sorry, the zoning board,
Zoning.
but it was definitely Sparta.
Okay.
Board have any questions? Any questions from the board? No, okay.
So I
you're
offer Mr.
accepted.
Fisher as
Yes, you're
expert in
accepted.
the area of engineering for
Thank
the
you.
purposes of presenting our site plan. All right. Mr. Fisher, you put up a board here. Has this been provided to the board?
Yes, it has.
It has. Okay, but it's colorized, correct?
It's a colorized version of the plan sheet 3 of 12 of what was submitted.
So it's a little different than what was submitted, correct?
That's correct.
So we're gonna, what is the date of that?
The date of the plan is August 8th. 2024.
Okay, so we're going to label this as A1. We'll leave this with the board.
Would you put today's date on it too, please?
What's it, the 19th?
Yes.
Okay, in addition to that, you've made similarly colored images. Are these identical to that?
They are.
And are these for the purpose of the board so that they can look at them in case they can't see this?
That is correct.
So this is a reduced version of A1?
It is.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Just stick both.
There's 2 pages. And you will find that with this as well.
Okay.
So there's going to be an A2 as well. All right, Mr. Fisher, take it away.
All right. So as we've noted before, this property was under a similar, almost identical application in 2020, where it was approved by this board. The footprint of the building is the same as what was approved in 2020. The location of the building is the same location. Building coverage has slightly increased in that we have added a canopy across the front of it for aesthetics purposes. The canopy is located on the southeasterly corner of the building. It wraps around the southerly side to the easterly, southeasterly side. The application previously was granted a variance for impervious coverage. In the ED zone, the requirement, the maximum impervious coverage required is 40%, and the applicant, previous applicant, received a variance for 51%. To maintain that same percentage, we reduced the pavement impervious coverage associated with the pavement to keep the coverage number identical, but the actual pavement widths are less, so there's less pavement on site. As we noted, we have 9 parking spaces striped across the front of the building. 6 is what we're saying is really what is necessary, but we're providing 9. And then we're providing an area for 11 parking spaces that are unstriped adjacent to the building. This building is set up for 1 tenant as opposed to what was previously approved for 4 tenants. There's accessible routes around the building from the parking spaces to the front of the building. There is additional relief required for the number of overhead bay doors. 5 is what's allowed by maximum by the code. We're providing 6, so we're seeking relief for that. In addition to that, we're also seeking relief from the storage and parking coverage, which again, that's a variance. 25% is what's allowed, the maximum. We're providing 33%. And I'd like to actually also note that under the previous application, we were providing 34%. As I stated earlier, we've reduced the pavement area, therefore, we've actually reduced this, the intensity of this variance that we're seeking here. I talked about the impervious coverage. We're also seeking variance relief for landscape area ratio, which I believe is new to the ordinance since the previous application was approved. The plan that you currently have before you in those plans for landscaping shows approximately 19% of plant area mass across the property.
All right, just to confirm, just so that the board is aware, so there's 2 pages there. One of them is the site plan colorized, and the other one is the landscape plan, so that you can see that. I just want to make sure the board's aware of that.
So is he referring to that now? Why don't we mark the second?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to mark that one A2, please.
I was loosely in the sense that it was also included in the application package.
Yep.
It's behind it.
I'm trying to get to it.
You just flip it over.
Oh,
I tried to make it easy.
thank you so much.
That's okay. So the minimum requirement in the ED zone is 40%. So again, we're seeking relief from that as well.
But it's an increase since the last application.
That's correct. It is an increase since the last application. I noted the number of loading docks, the overhead doors, the number of parking spaces, we spoke about that. And then lastly, we're seeking relief for the parking space size. That's it's a waiver. We're providing 9 by 18 parking space size, where 9 by 20 is what's the minimum required. Would note that all of those parking spaces are adjacent to a curbed sidewalk that would allow for the extra 2 foot of overhang, so we would theoretically have enough room with the overhang of 9 by 20. And then lastly, it's actually noted in Mr. Simmons's report about waiver relief for access drive width. The aisle width in all of the one-way direction of traffic circulation is less than 24 feet. In some cases, it's 23 feet. I believe in 22 across the front and rear of the building, and that's all one-way traffic flow. But in the areas where the parking is adjacent to it, it does meet the ordinance requirement of 24 feet. I noted the footprint of the building is the same size. We are providing a trash enclosure of 12 by 15 feet. That's enough to allow for at least 2 6 cubic yard dumpsters. We have a generator pad on site. The property will be serviced by municipal water, which is out in Park Lake Drive. There is no sanitary sewer in this area, so the site has been designed with a septic system. I'd like to note that approval from this health department has been extended up through, I believe, August of 2025. So we're current with that still. The site is set up to handle stormwater management. There's a surface infiltration basin located at the front of the property between the building and Park Lake Drive. That's designed to handle the increase in runoff flows from the property and not negatively impact Park Lake Drive or the surrounding properties. Lighting, the property has adequate lighting. It meets the ordinance requirements. I noted the landscape requirements. And then as far as site circulation, this property was, this development was looked at and considered for tractor trailer circulation. It is sufficient to circulate a WB50 articulating tractor trailer, which is what was approved previously on the previous application as well. And that's basically my overview of the application.
All right, Mr. Fisher, we did have some consideration with respect to the impervious coverage that we talked about. If the board would like, we can reduce some of the parking by either way of pervious pavers, or additionally, we can reduce the parking lot because we're confident about the need for parking to address the impervious. Is that correct?
We discussed reducing the amount of sidewalk adjacent to the parking lot to further reduce the impervious coverage. And then we also discussed moving the dumpster enclosure from an exterior location, which is here, to directly inside the paved area, which would be out of any traffic circulation, and then kind of utilizing something that's already going to be impervious for something for the trash enclosure.
Where's that trash
So
dumpster?
if you're looking on your
Oh,
plans,
it's up
you'll
there.
see kind of like a white area in the upper corner here.
Okay, and it is
That's the
enclosed?
trash enclosure.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay. Anything else?
Questions?
Leave to our professionals.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, referring to my report of October 23rd, 2024, Mr. Fisher has covered some of the items that were listed in the report, but just to highlight some and flesh out some other items. Again, with regards to variances, we're talking impervious coverage, 40% max, 51% is proposed. And for the lot area ratio for parking and storage, 25% max is allowed, and they're proposing 33%. They are proposing an additional dock door beyond what's allowed by the latest ordinance. And with regards to Section 18-4.29 I-5, calls for tractor-trailer parking stalls by each dock door. Tractor-trailer-sized parking stalls have not been provided by the dock doors. So that's another situation. With regards to the site plan itself, they basically have shown that truck movement around the building in the clockwise direction is satisfactory for a WB50. The proposed handicap spaces would be subject, as the board were to approve the application, for review by the township construction official. One item, maybe I missed it, with regards to the proposed pad for an emergency generator, has a generator type been chosen as far as fuel type and noise level at the property lines and what have you?
It has not been at this time.
So that's unknown at this point. You're just proposing the pad at this point.
That's correct.
And I believe I had a comment, number 4D, no outside storage on the site, but I believe the applicants already agreed to that.
That's correct.
Okay. With regards, again, to the parking and circulation, I had calculated 36 parking spaces were needed, 20 are provided, so that needs a waiver. Again, the parking space size, 9 by 20 is required, 9 by 18 is proposed. In the areas that were referred to where the 2-foot overhang over the sidewalk, how wide is the sidewalk at that location?
6 feet.
All right, so there'll still be a clear 4-foot wide sidewalk
Yes.
for pedestrians, okay,
And,
good.
and just to further on that, I noted previously, the option to reduce the sidewalk. That was considered in part of it, but it was to maintain the backside of the sidewalk and reduce the sidewalk forward. So you'd still have that 2-foot overhang without impeding the walkway.
Okay, good. And again, with regards to the aisle width in Sparta's ordinance for 90-degree parking, 24 foot is the normal requirement. There's some areas where it's 23 feet, but I think Mr. Fisher was trying to indicate that in the areas where they were proposing 23 feet, there's no parking in that area. Correct? Okay. With regards to storm drainage, again, they have provided a basin up front to help mitigate the additional impervious coverage. We would need, if the board's inclined to approve the application, an operation and maintenance manual for the stormwater facilities, and that ultimately would be recorded in the county clerk's office so that subsequent owners, in addition to this owner, would know what their responsibilities are as far as maintaining, repairing, and what have you, the storm drainage system. With regards to the lighting, I did have some notes, I think there were some notes before on which exterior lighting were going to be left on as far as exterior lighting for safety purposes. And I requested that some cut sheets be provided to verify that the lighting is proposed to be downward-facing LED lighting. And I'm assuming that the applicant can accomplish that.
Yes, that's correct. As a matter of fact, I believe under the previous application, a cut sheet was provided. I can resubmit it again as well.
Okay. The architect is going to be testifying separately, correct? Okay, then I'll skip the architectural plans. With regards to landscaping, we had pointed out that basically the 40% on the site was supposed to be occupied by landscaping and shrubs. That has not been met. I believe they are proposing to do 19%.
Roughly 19%.
Roughly 19%. So that would be a waiver requirement from the board to consider if they're inclined to do so. With regards to utilities, I agree, there's Township Water Department provided in the street for all connections, whether it just be for domestic water, or if for some reason the township construction official mandates that under the code it has to be sprinklered, which I think they'll testify to later. But if it did have to be, there is water available in the street for that. And as the applicants just indicated, their septic system has been extended through later on this year. With regards to signage, what I found was that the proposed signage consists of a monument sign, 48 square feet, and that's what the code allows. With regards to the facade sign, 30 feet is proposed and 65.4 feet is allowed, so it meets those requirements. And as far as the total signage allowed, 100 square feet is allowed, and they're up to 78 square feet. So as far as I could tell with what they proposed, they meet the sign requirements as far as dimensional requirements. I did talk about some additional details that would be needed to satisfy the water department as far as their service line requirements and valving and metering requirements, but I'm sure the applicant can comply with all that. Briefly, we had discussed that this particular property is near the township's Germany Flats wells and their associated wellhead protection areas and restrictions against release of hazardous materials into drains, and the septic system should be incorporated into any approval the board might consider. And I think the applicant in previous testimony and perhaps tonight indicated that they would adhere to that. And then under miscellaneous, we had requested some additional studies per the new ordinance, the environmental impact statement, a traffic impact study, and a community impact statement, which Mr. Fisher, I think, authored and can go into that a little bit, I think. And with regards to the approvals, I listed the ones that I think are applicable for this particular site plan. And as usual, we recommend that if the board's to approve this application, that in fact the applicant provide an as-built plan upon completion of the project so we can verify in the field that any conditions of this report, the township planner's report, or conditions imposed by the board be adhered to and complied with. And that's my update, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just to be clear, the applicant agrees with all of the proposed conditions from Mr. Simmons' report? Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just have a handful of questions. I noted that the applicant shall address the EV space requirement. At the time that this application was previously approved, the EV standards I don't think were in effect statewide. Because this site is not developed, so it's not an amendment to an existing building, an existing site, it's just an amendment to the preliminary and final site plan approval. I believe that at least one EV space would be required per the state regulations. It's not shown on the plans, but if they could agree to that, I think it's something that,
Yes, we agree to that.
thank you.
So it'll be EV ready or installed?
It has to be EV ready.
Okay.
I know that the landscaping plan, I don't know if this came up at the last hearing when we had that kind of brief introduction of the project, but the landscape plan does address some of the more general landscape requirements under section 18-5.30. But the ED zone was amended in 2022 to include additional landscape requirements, particular to the ED zone, under section 18-4.29.I7. There's a handful of them. So I don't know, I know that they didn't make it onto the landscape plan. I think that they eventually should to show that they comply with them. In particular, the minimum landscape area ratio of 0.4, just to show compliance with that. And then also.
Didn't we say they didn't comply with that? Wasn't that the testimony? You don't comply with the 0.4 for landscaping?
Normally had 19%, I thought.
Right, that's what I thought I heard.
It includes ground cover as well, so I didn't know if that was factored in. Okay, so that should be shown, that deviation should be shown on the plans then. And then, as far as, I think the ordinance is worded in such a way that says not to use exotic species, and recommends or encourages non-invasive and native species. And I think most of the species are actually native, with the exception of two, the Colorado Bruce spruce, which isn't, I mean, it's still domestic, but the Chinese juniper, I think if you can find variation, an NJ native juniper variation, that should be replaced. I think there's a handful of them that are native to New Jersey.
We have no objection to that. We're open to suggestions with regard to landscaping for sure.
Okay, thank you. And then I don't know if there was any other standards under the landscape area. Some of them are more design related about the placement of evergreens at the property lines, and are less direct than the landscape area ratio requirement, but I didn't know if you had any other deviations from those that should be shown as well.
I'm not aware of any additional variations from the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And you'll agree to update the plan to show the landscape area ratio on the landscape plan,
Yes,
correct?
absolutely.
Thank you. I think the rest of my comments are going to be directed towards the architect. Thank you.
We'll go back to the dais.
I have a question, a few questions. The plant matter, so we're unclear, 19%, 40%, 40% is the requirement, but you think you're at 19?
Yeah, 19 is being provided, right, Mike?
That's correct.
And then there's ground cover that's just amidst the plantings?
I believe it was just a comment from the planner. It has been included in that 19%.
Okay. So in amidst all those plantings, I don't know what the requirement is for the 40%, I'm just curious. The green area is beyond the planting area, so that's not,
Let me see.
because the map, top of the map is sewage, wastewater?
Yeah,
That's
that,
correct.
Right,
Sorry.
okay.
septic system.
Yes, that's correct.
So for your lighting, I had a question. What were the hours of the lighting?
I believe we have noted on the plans that the lighting was to be clock operated from dusk until dawn, but I believe that was a comment in the engineer's letter, so we're open to.
Because you're doing 7 to 4, right? So you could tweak that? You'd be
Yes,
open to it?
We're open to recommendations.
Do you have temperature determined on, like LED temperature determined? Are you willing to kind of go more warm and less daylight? It's like 3,000 Kelvin, 2,700?
We're currently providing 4,000 Kelvin, but if
Are you willing to go a little lower just to,
absolutely change it.
according to newer standards?
So what would that be?
Maybe trying to get 2,700 Kelvin if possible. I don't think it incurs an additional cost. It's just
No,
a,
it's
it's a
it doesn't
warmer
even
light.
change the illumination levels much, it's just, or the coverage, it's just the color that it appears.
It's an aesthetic and it's less blue light, so it's generally seen as,
According to this spec that we were using, the lowest that they provide is 3,000 Kelvin.
that's fine.
So I
Yeah,
can adjust it to that.
3,000 from 4, yeah, it'll make a difference. The 6 bay doors, so does that mean that there's 3 in every one, in those 2 sections? The 3 on the right side?
We can look at those when we look at the
The architecture,
architecturals.
okay.
Yeah.
The dumpster, you were talking about increasing pervious pavers, reducing parking spaces, that you were open to that because you're confident in your parking numbers, because you're just commercial.
Yeah, we felt that it was a give and take, right? 6 in one hand and a half dozen in the other. So we could take away some more of the parking, but then we would need more of a variance on one end versus giving the parking, and we need more of a variance on the other end for impervious. So that's why we kind of were open to suggestions from the board. Additionally, if the board was open to pervious pavers to reduce the calculation by way of percentage, we were happy to discuss that with the board this evening through the engineers.
So, I mean, presumably, that would be, brought this up in environmental, but Nicolak has good pervious pavers.
They
that
do.
could be
Yes.
used, so it's almost like a virtual showcase.
Yes, exactly. And
showroom.
we
Alright.
we would be open to that idea. If the board suggests that and they'd like that, we'll be happy to provide the reduction in pervious.
And okay, I like that. The tractor trailer size for the door stalls that Mr. Simmons mentioned, so that's just, again, I mean, maybe we cover that in the bay door question, but I guess I am curious, you need 6, but you're getting 3 deliveries a week?
Yeah, so I can have my client provide testimony as to why they need the 6 doors, but it's my understanding that the 6 doors are designed so that it's safer inside the building for the people working there, so that things don't have to be moved as much inside the building. The trucks can be parked at a bay door, and they're offloaded and put in their place, as opposed to moving them around inside the building and having to move other stuff inside the building.
So are you gonna have these 3 tractor trailers, potentially all 3 of them in the building?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, yeah.
You're just
no.
gonna unload and kind of pile and stage
We just
within
wanted the
building?
board to be aware of approximately how many tractor-trailer trucks are coming to their current location per week, so that you understand that. Again, the bay doors, the amount of bay doors, and my client can provide this testimony, is solely for the purpose of safety.
Okay. And,
Not because there's gonna be 3 tractor-trailer truck, or 6 tractor-trailer trucks parked at the building.
right.
It's
no,
just so that they have to move
have-
less inside the building.
They have options when they're staging inside to come in. Okay, I got it. And those bay doors, I mean, I assume we'll cover that. But your planting areas, the plantings adjacent those bay doors seem like lower type plantings, but presumably you could, like the higher bay door area seems like it has lower plants, just based on the graphics. If there was any concern about shielding the bay door, you could swap some plantings in, you'd be,
Could increase the massing. Right now, it's an evergreen buffer that's
Okay.
shown there. We could absolutely increase that.
so you feel like it's already screened?
It's intended to provide screening. If the board would like additional screening, we could consider that.
Are you planning any signage on the canopy is new, right? Is there any like implied signage?
We'll show
or-
images of the building with the architect so you can see what it looks like. That's part of the, that's another thing too. There's aesthetics that are tied to the architecturals that we could remove the canopy essentially and reduce the impervious coverage. But we think the canopy provides for the aesthetics of the building and the town and the community. And so the architect can provide that. When you see it.
And, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just looking for, if you did all the things that you talked about in the impervious to do a trade-off, what number we would get to, since we're at,
Yeah, the impervious with the original application is really offset by the retention basin. If we met the impervious Mike, you can provide testimony to this.
So the infiltration basin is intended to collect the runoff that's the increase in runoff that's created by this development. A lot of that is created by the impervious coverage. So we are mitigating that. We've met our runoff reductions in accordance with the state code requirements. We have technically further reduced the runoff because we've reduced the pavement area that's running off to that basin. It's also it's less area that needs to be treated for water quality. It's effectively dirty impervious, and we've traded that for roof area, which in the trade is really kind of considered clean impervious. Roof areas typically don't need to be treated for water quality, whereas pavement areas, because they're traversed by vehicles, they do.
okay, so are you counting was it a detention basin in your 19%, or?
No, we are only, the areas that are included, and what you can probably tell from the plan that you have in front of you on the second stapled sheet, which would be sheet 6, there's kind of like a grayish white cross-hatched area.
Yep.
That's generally what you're seeing as being the land mass area for 19%.
So it's essentially a sheet flow buffer comprised of the organic plantings ringing the property, and then you additionally have this basin roadside that you're saying is further dealing with the impervious sheet flow runoff. So I guess, Catherine, do we have any kind of trade-off calculations, or Mr. Simmons, on impervious? I mean, that's a good point, but is there any number?
The one thing I probably should bring this up now, we had some discussions at our office and also with Mr. Fisher regarding the permeable pavers and what have you. And I'm not saying that the permeable pavers don't allow some infiltration and what have you, but our reading, and we discussed this a lot at the office, of the current DEP regulations, is that they really would not change the impervious coverage percentage. I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but based on the way the latest DEP regs are written, that's how we interpreted it, and we've had other applications that Mr. Fisher's office has been involved in, and that's how we treated that. That's not to say you couldn't put them in, but I would not recommend giving them credit on the impervious coverage because of what I just explained.
So when you had those discussions, did you guys talk about high traffic tractor trailers driving over typical pervious pavers? Do they stand up to that traffic and the weight?
Well, a lot of the pervious pavers have more than just the block itself, if you will. Depending on the traffic load that's going to be put on them, you have a significant and substantial base material, not only for the drainage purposes, but also to sustain the weight of a particular type of vehicle that you might have on site. And if you've got a site like this in a commercial setting where you're going to have tractor trailers, loaded tractor trailers, up to the legal weight of 80,000 pounds, basically you want to have the right substrata, not only for drainage, but also for the weight. But again, the big thing that I saw was when we discussed it at our office and we went over it with Mr. Fisher, was that even if they did point it out with some pervious paver areas, it's our understanding that it would not mitigate the impervious coverage percentage.
And even if it did, would you, so I have two other things and then I'll, sorry, I'm taking up a lot of the time, but with the impervious or the pervious pavers, is there any concern that if they were more pervious, more effective at transmitting surface materials subsurface, is that actually what you want adjacent and near the Germany Flats area and wellhead protection zone? Or would you prefer that? And is there any kind of direction to the detention basin in this particular plan?
I think in this particular application, and I asked Mr. Fisher to verify this, in the basin up front, does that have a sand layer in the bottom?
Yes, it does.
All right, the one thing I professionally and personally like about the sand layer in the bottom, it's visible. Basically, you can see it do its work, if you will, in that while the drainage and the salts and the sands come and the debris and leaf matter and what have you come into that basin, you literally can see it accumulate on the sand. And then as it becomes, and this would be part of the operation and maintenance manual that I mentioned before, it'd be a situation where the applicant can go in and have his contractor or his maintenance staff clean that out, rake that out, clean up the sand, and/or add more sand as necessary. So it's something that's visible. It's one of those situations in this particular case where you're going to see it every day you drive into the site. You're going to see the situation. The one I always look at over in Hampton Township, for example, on 206, there's a Tractor Supply. And on the left-hand side of that building, they've got a similar type basin with the sand layer for water quality as far as filtering out the total dissolved solids. And that one you can see when it's time for them to do the maintenance work. Not saying that this applicant wouldn't do it, but with the pavers, there's maintenance involved as far as vacuuming it and that type of thing. And the concern I have with that is we're not necessarily there to see it visibly, did they vacuum it or not? And over a period of time, is it going to stand the test of time as far as being able to function properly and be maintained properly, that type of thing. So for my case, I prefer the way Mr. Fisher has it shown here on the plan with the sand bottom that you can readily see and maintain fairly easily.
So like a rain garden or a bioswale would hide a lot of sins, but you're not getting away with that with a detention
Well,
basin
I
with
think
sand bottom.
the rain gardens and what have you are a good feature, but they're for relatively small areas. And right now, we're talking about a whole parking lot and a building. So I think you end up with something larger than a rain garden for this case. You end up with this infiltration detention basin.
Is there, I didn't see it in here, but is there, like grading or some kind of pipe system conveying, the sheet flow to the basin?
Yeah, there basically are storm drainage inlets that will convey the water ultimately to the basin. And then there's an outlet structure that regulates the flow coming out before it ties into the existing storm drainage in Park Lake Road.
All right, my last question for now, sorry. I
right.
did want to ask, because it piqued my interest, that roofs are not dirty for stormwaters. And Catherine, is that true generally still, or is that accepted?
I believe that's still true as far as treatment,
Only
water
'cause-
quality,
Yes.
water quality, not water quantity.
Only because I come from a place where there was a large bakery with a flat roof, and seagulls would like to avail themselves, and so it was actually determined to be a massive point load input, and so my concern, they're not baking anything there, so presumably they're not going to have, but we do have a lot of birds on Lake Mohawk and surround, so I would kind of question whether that's totally true with phosphates and nitrates, but, all
Like,
right.
I think in this case, and Mr. Fisher can correct me if I'm wrong, the roof area is coming to the infiltration and detention basin anyway.
That is correct. It's being treated regardless. It was just a point of statement.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, didn't mean to pick on you, it's just,
Chairwoman, I just have one clarification to ask. The colorized exhibit, everywhere that's green, is that going to be grass cover?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, that can, what I was trying to say before was the way the landscape area ratio is calculated and the way landscape area is defined is really that anything that's not building and parking and stormwater basin is essentially contributing towards that ratio. And so if your 19% is only limited to those hatched areas underneath the landscaping on your plan, then I think it's actually higher than 19%.
I would agree with you to that. Would that also include the in-slope into the basin? Can I be as aggressive as to say that as well? Anything that's not the sand layer, level bottom?
If it's it's pervious, yeah.
that's what I was asking too,
Yeah.
was,
I would
The
say that we
19%.
It seemed
might be
low.
a lot closer
Yeah.
to 40%.
I think you
We
would
may
be
not
just-
actually make it, but
Eyeballing it, you're close. You're pretty close, I'd say. Okay, whatever that number may be, I think seeking the waiver, if the board is acting on this application tonight or plans to, if we get through all the testimony, I think including it as a waiver for a level of protection may be helpful, but knowing that they're going to basically update the plan to show what the real number is okay.
I just have a quick question. So, then, not to beat a dead horse, but we were talking about the potential of reduction of the sidewalk. Can you clarify that? Which side of the sidewalk were we talking about?
let me flip back to this plan. It's probably a little bit easier to do it. The entire sidewalk itself is 6 feet wide. We're proposing as an option that we can take the front 2 feet of the sidewalk and pull it back, hold the back line that's adjacent to the building, so you still have that 2-foot overhang for the parking spaces that are adjacent to it. And then once you get past the unstriped 11 spaces, just eliminate the sidewalk altogether, because it's a sidewalk essentially to nowhere.
All right, because I'm thinking, again, eyeballing it, you're pretty close, but if you do that, you're 100% on point.
Another 1%. Between that and moving the dumpster enclosure into the paved
Yeah,
area,
I think you would be well
it's another
within
1%.
that, that range, and you probably wouldn't need a waiver at all.
You're still
that
gonna
point.
need it, because the requirement's 25.
Well, right. I'm just saying
I'm
that,
saying we're gonna, I'm sorry, 40.
40.
And we're coming in at 51 right now. We'd get it down to about 50%.
And what would that,
10% over still.
no, I was talking about in terms of your landscape.
Oh, yes, you're right, that we would create a little additional green space there as well.
Right, so
That-
that would be one less waiver you would
Yes,
need.
correct.
You answered my question.
Thank you.
I love when I do that.
Well said, thank you.
Jeanette?
I'm good.
Might have all been asked and answered.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, so last time that we met, we talked about the actual square footage of the building. I'm not sure I heard that, anything talked about that up front. So when you look at the drawings, it references a 11,880 square foot building, which I do not believe includes the mezzanine. So I think when you include the mezzanine, it goes to 13,000 something square feet, and I think that we had agreed to that last time.
I wasn't present for what was discussed.
We can, I think we left it to the architect to discuss
Want to
that.
talk that
Yeah.
there? Okay, great, thanks.
But we did start to talk about it, and then we kind of just stopped because we're at that point.
Okay. Let me look real quick. So in terms of the generator, so when it comes time to install a generator, you'll come before the minor site plan subcommittee with the noise information and stuff and get that approved? there?
Absolutely,
Okay, great.
yes.
Thank you. What is, there's a reserved area up in the northern corner. What is that for?
Referring to that?
Right up on the top corner, you'll see it's marked reserved.
Top
There's a
left,
box up there.
top left, there's a rectangle.
Oh, it's a reserved disposal bed area. It's a requirement, per the septic code.
Okay. Relative to parking, so, my understanding is 20 parking spaces proposed, but 9 are gonna be unstriped. So if they're unstriped, are they really parking spaces, or is it just blacktop?
There's- I'll re-clarify the statement to say that there's room for an additional 9 parking spaces.
So right now, you're really proposing 11 parking spaces,
11 striped parking spaces.
11 stripes.
yes.
So 11,
Yes.
that was, so if they're not striped, they're not parking spaces, so it would be 11.
In the
So
event
so
that,
the waiver would be for 11 to whatever the requirement is, right?
yes,
And we said, did you say that tractor trailers would not be accessing the parking lot?
no, that's, tractor trailer can navigate safely around the entire building.
So, so where would they park and load and unload if they were to need to unload?
Currently on the first sheet of the colorized exhibit that you have,
Right.
where the overhead loading bay doors are, the freight bay doors are.
Yeah.
They would pull up right in front of there, which is, there's areas that are noted on the plans, 2 areas
Yeah.
noted on the plan as 12 by 30 loading areas. They would effectively pull up in front of that area.
So,
The entire area is effectively a loading zone.
so is that, I'm gonna look to some help from Dave here. Is that gonna be large enough to do that, or do we need additional waivers here, or how does that work?
From what I understand about the testimony, depending on what the delivery is and where the material that's being delivered would fit within the proposed building, that would be the determining factor on which overhead door they would pull up to. I think it's basically parallel parking on that entire side of the building. And it's not so much that they've got additional volume as much as they want to minimize the amount of travel time inside the building with a forklift or whatever.
So you feel that that the spaces that are there would be sufficient based on the staggering of the tractor trailers coming on site?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So when I look at a tractor trailer space, I think it needs to be much larger than what's been provided on the plan.
Agreed.
So the concern is from a safety perspective, if a tractor trailer were to come on site, are the spaces there large enough to accommodate it?
Effectively, what would probably be required for a tractor trailer would be double the size of one of those spaces. But again, I'll piggyback off of what Mr. Simmons said, because it's what's been talked about here tonight. That tractor trailer, that 12 by 60 footprint of that tractor trailer would pull up adjacent to any one of these bays out of the lane of traffic to allow still circulation around the building, offload, and then pull away.
So you'll stagger it in a way that there would only be one there at a time?
Well, I'm not gonna stagger anything because I'm not driving a truck, but that's the idea.
Yeah, my clients agreed to stagger the deliveries purposely for the reason that you're stating.
I misunderstood the
Thank you so
question.
much.
I
Yep.
misunderstood the
Yeah,
question,
no, it's okay. Yes, the deliveries will be staggered per that.
timing-wise,
Um,
yes.
Looking at the current ordinance, I believe the current ordinance requires for two means of egress and ingress. Can you comment on that?
I believe that's more of an architectural, correct?
Into the building
Uh,
or into the parking
It,
area?
it says ingress egress, so Catherine, if you look at what we
I mean,
did
we do
under,
have two door locations on the building regardless, and actually, we have three. There's one facing the parking lot, one facing the front of the building, and then there are multiple multiple man doors on the loading zone side.
can you do me a favor, when you get a
Absolutely.
chance? Look at ordinance 18-4-29 I4, and tell me, do you feel that design meets that standard? And you don't have to do that right now, you can
Okay.
look later,
Okay.
okay? If I put the aisle width, the building sign,
Yes.
that's internally lit,
I believe that's the architect's design.
okay? And that's it, thanks.
My apologies, I misunderstood your question before.
No, I probably could have questioned it, put it to you better.
Okay, and just going back to these tractor-trailer-sized parking stalls that are not provided there, what happens if you sell the building down the road and they were not provided for?
They sell the building?
Mhm.
I mean, under the current code, they're gonna have to come back here as a new tenant. So I would imagine you'd have an opportunity to discuss with them what they could and couldn't do.
But would there be room for them?
I don't know who, I don't think we know who the potential buyer of the building would be to know whether or not there'd be room for them.
No, on the site here, because it does call for tractor-trailer parking stalls by each dock door, section 18-4.29.I.5. So they're not provided for, but is there room for them if need be?
I guess I'd have to see the actual statute to understand what the stalls are referring to.
Catherine, this was in your report, maybe you can address it?
Yeah, so the development standards under the ED zone, in particular for storage and warehouse uses, have a number of design requirements that are intended for those uses in particular to help protect the design of the site. The one that Mr. Day was referring to includes that there should be an ingress, two means of ingress, egress into the site, not to the building, but to the site, which can include emergency access road, subject to approval by the fire official. The other one is there's a specific requirement for tractor trailer parking per dock doors. Now, these are roll-up doors, they're not necessarily dock, they're a little bit different in that. So, but it does have a requirement basically that per dock door, you have a trailer parking so that for staging purposes. Now, part of the dilemma I had in writing the report was really, and I think I included it, but haven't asked the question was, is this, confirm if this is a warehouse or storage use? We've heard it's kind of a quasi showroom, that it's not going to be distributing material, but you're going to basically be, using it as a place to show things, which is not your typical warehouse. You usually don't have visitors to come into a warehouse. So part of the dilemma I was having was, I think it is a permitted use in the zone, which was, clarified by the fact that the planning board approved it previously. But I didn't know if it required the standards under the ED zone for storage and warehouse uses based on what they described. Because some of these are design standards likely meant for a larger build or a larger use than this, than a 12,000 square foot building. Nevertheless, I do think that the applicant should address them in, abundance of caution to make sure.
Because it was approved originally as just the warehouse, and this showroom is only in the mezzanine, if I understand it.
We could get that testimony from the architect.
Well,
I don't want to, he'll provide that testimony, that's all. That's all I'm saying. Why don't we get the architect on so he can go over exactly how the building looks? And maybe when you see it, it might open up some doors for it. the board.
I think that would be helpful. I have, a lot of my questions were related to the architect, so let's hear more about that, and then we can kind of run back to the standards and the
All right,
ordinance.
And then the only other question I had is the unstriped spaces that are there. If you're we can bank them, can you plant, instead of paving over it, can you use that as additional landscape? That section, just expand out a little bit, so you'll remove the sidewalk in that area there, and then just extend the landscape out to that rectangular area.
Yeah, and that was kind of my answer to Mr. Otto's question. It's a give and take. We'd be happy to do that, but we were trying to get closer to the parking requirement. But we'd be happy to remove that because we know what we need for the,
Right, but
for
if
the
you
parking.
bank them and later on you need them, then you just pave over it
Understood.
when you need be.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to do that.
Okay, very good. That's all I had. Public.
Just your name for the record, please.
Beth Broderick, North Shore in Sparta. I'm a little confused, I'm sorry I'm late, but if it's a warehouse, I
Bad
understand.
microphone.
Oh, sorry. If it's a showroom, why are there tractor trailers? Is it a warehouse or a showroom? I'm late, I'm sorry, so I'm
Yeah,
just trying to
that-
get
that-
caught up.
That was addressed by the applicant. It's, I'll try to speak correctly for him. Essentially, there's going to be deliveries to the property to set up for the display for client.
We can have our client,
You
my
wanna do that?
client answer that question. Absolutely.
Okay, and again, I apologize, I was really late. I take Route 80 and there's a sinkhole, so.
Well, before we do that, do you have any questions for the engineer?
Yeah, with the trucks and the dock doors, are they parallel parking to the building? And how are they gonna get the stuff out? Like, instead of backing up to like a door? Like, how is that gonna work?
So the doors are at grade.
Okay.
So there's no 4-foot lower loading dock that they would offload directly into the building. So each of the trucks should have like a lift gate or a forklift that's going to come and take the material off of the truck and then load it directly into the building.
Okay, you answered a couple of them all in one thing, and then I think you actually got them all by answering one of them. You did all of it in one shot.
Good night.
Thanks.
Nino, did you want to answer that?
Yes.
It was as a warehouse or a showroom?
Right.
So it is a showroom. The reason for the trucks would be delivery of our inventory. A lot of the product that we sell comes from overseas, so it would be delivered in intermodal containers that get unloaded.
Okay. Sorry, I'm late, so I'm still trying to just get
Oh,
caught
no, no,
up.
no worries at all.
I'm still confused here, though, because on your plans that you have up here, A1 and A2, it says 10,395 square foot warehouse shop, and then office space, 2,970. So is that warehouse shop? Is that correct?
Well, it would be the inventory of our product.
So 10,395 square feet is for just inventory and warehouse.
Correct.
And then the showroom and offices will be 2,970 square feet.
Yes.
So very little of showroom.
Well, it would be office and showroom in that area, yes.
And would that be upstairs, away from the warehouse?
It would be towards the front of the building. It would be first and second floor.
Yeah, and again, I think the architect will be able to he'll be able to show you the inside of the building so you can see exactly what space is going to be used for what.
But if you have 3 tractor trailers coming every week, they're getting offloaded, and then Mr. Wingle shows up, sees something he likes, that material's getting loaded into his commercial vehicles?
No, that's not.
Well, that was also factoring in any outgoing delivery, like,
That's all of the truck usage that we're talking about, 2 to 3 deliveries per day or pickups, which is what the testimony was. And then there, approximately of those 2 to 3, there's maybe 3 tractor trailer trucks per week total.
That are delivering.
So yeah, so maybe there's one on Monday, maybe there's one on Thursday, maybe there's one on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know, they're not, it's not, it's just however the person's or the company's delivering them.
But it's a warehouse then, right? Is the point.
Wait for the
You-
architect.
Okay,
Oh.
yep.
Any other questions from the public?
I think it's a warehouse, but I don't know. You guys know better than I do. Sorry, that's not really a question, but.
Jenny, you're the only other public?
I just want to make sure I'm keeping track here. We have a variance for impervious coverage, a variance for lot area ratio, a variance for dock doors, a waiver for parking, a waiver for minimum parking space size, potentially a waiver for landscape plan. Do I have it
The one you had for lot area ratio is lot area ratio for parking.
for parking?
Just to clarify.
So that's two set, but it's still a waiver.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because there's one,
Okay.
there's not a waiver for the building, but there's a requirement for
Okay,
buildings, so just wanted to
thank you.
clarify.
And then there are some other requirements per the new 2221 ordinance for reports. Dave quickly or briefly mentioned them. Do you have them? Were they
We
received?
received a traffic impact statement, community impact statement, an environmental impact statement.
Okay, so they just weren't attached to the online. Okay,
I
that's,
received in January.
okay, thank you. That's it for now.
When can we talk about the environmental and community impact?
I'd ask if they have a witness or if someone talk about it.
Do you have a witness for that?
For the environmental impact?
I believe Mr.
And
Fisher
the traffic
was the
study and the,
author of that document.
Yes.
Sorry, I have one more question, if that's okay.
yeah, one
This
second,
is-
because I was
oh,
just
sorry.
asking because it only states that it's a one-story building in those reports.
A mezzanine is not considered a story per building code, so that might be why they call it that. Let's hear the architect.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, the other question was, and Ron asked my question, two ingress and egress requirement, is that also going to be requiring a variance?
We're going to touch on that once we hear from the architect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, can we take a 5-minute break as you're switching out? I'll watch it.
Ms. Marty?
Okay,
Ready?
let's resume session, please.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So I have the architect here who's ready to present the plans to the board. Mr. Warry, you've been sworn in. If you can please state your credentials for the record.
Yes, my name's Fred Wara. I'm from licensed architect at Fox Architectural Design. My background for education is I have a Master's of Architecture from Tulane University in 1996. And I received my New Jersey license in May of 2000. It's current and good standing. I've not testified before this board before, but I've testified before other boards, Jefferson, Wharton, Roxbury, East Hanover, Hackettstown, and others.
And I offer Mr. Warr as an expert in the area of architecture.
Any questions, anyone? Okay, we can accept you.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to walk through the building. So this is the front side of the building. On the right-hand side of the page, these drawings I have up here are the same ones that were submitted to the board, no changes made to them. So in the front area, this portion here on the first level, on the mezzanine level, this is that showroom and office area that was talked about. So this area here on the first level is 1,485 square feet. Same thing for the mezzanine. It's 1,485 square feet. It stacks directly above them. On the first level, there's showroom. There's a main entry area where you come in off the front here. There's a showroom area on the first level in the front. A couple of handicap accessible bathrooms, office space, and other ancillary spaces. On the upper level up the stairs, there's another showroom. And then towards the other side is a conference area. Conference/break room area. So again, that's 1,485 square feet, 1,485 square feet. Then on the remainder of the first level, going towards the rear of the building, that is the warehouse portion of the building, which is 10,395 square feet. And that's a high, it's like a two-story, essentially high storage area for high racking. Now, when you add up all those numbers together, the total square footage of usable space between all the levels is 13,365 square feet. Back in the warehouse area, on the one side, as was testified to before, we have 6 overhead doors, again, for that safety concern for moving product in and out of the facility. And also, in addition to that, we have a number of additional access doors, one on this side, 3 on this side out of the warehouse, as well as the one coming out the front of the entry over here. So we have multiple points of ingress and egress in and out of the building, again, to meet the building codes and to make it efficient for everyday use. The other thing about, I know this came up as a question previously, as far as the building areas and the uses and the separation of uses here, there is no requirement for sprinklers in this building as per the building code. Okay, this building does not require that. It's under the threshold for the storage use, which would be the only potential trigger on this building as far as sprinklers go.
But any approval, or if the board looks kindly upon the application this evening, any approval would be conditioned upon the construction official making a determination whether or not sprinklers were required. I just want to make that clear so that there's no question about that.
Okay, so that essentially is the plan layout of the building. These are the building elevations as submitted. So this entry area, this is the front entry area, and this is that entry door into that first level or the lower level vestibule area. The look of the two-story facade wraps around the two sides to encompass both the main level and the mezzanine level. And to be able to highlight that area, that's done in a separate stucco finish. We also, in this same area, utilized large windows, aluminum framed glass windows, to be able to let a lot of visibility. Again, these are the showroom areas, and these are also call it the office and conference areas, to let a lot of visibility into the building as well as light, to promote a better interior environment inside the building. as was testified to before, on the front, and also wrapping around the two sides in the area of that stucco area, we have a suspended metal canopy, again, to highlight the front and also to provide more of a pedestrian scale as we enter the building. So there's a roof covering that's closer to you, almost like a canopy coming over the top of you as you enter the building. This same type of detailing of this entry element on the front is also duplicated on the side, that one entry side access that we talked about on this side of the building. Again, using the same kind of finish, the same type of size of glass, the same type of canopy to be able to shelter the entry. Material-wise, we're looking at stucco in those entry areas, as I mentioned. In addition to that, down around the entire base of the building, we have a split-face block base, which anchors the building to the ground and is consistent all the way around. Other areas on the sides and the rear, they are going to be modern insulated metal panels. They're contemporary style. They're going to be installed with concealed fasteners, and they're going to have some shadow lines on them to give them some visual interest. These are not the old style corrugated metal panels that you see on like old, older type, down and dirty, cheap industrial buildings. It's not that type of panel. Also, in addition, we do have some clear story windows in the upper portion of the warehouse area, and those are highlighted with a contrasting band that wraps around. And in addition to that, we have some other banding to be able to highlight and cap certain areas of both the stucco area and of the panel area. The roof is going to be standing seam metal. And in the areas, again, to kind of punctuate those entry areas, in the areas of those entries, those roofs have been designed with a little bigger overhang to be able to make a variation in the shape of the roof and be able to create some different fascia heights. On the front facade here, above in the center, is a self-illuminated box sign, which, as was mentioned previously, whereas 65.4 square feet is allowed for the sign, we are proposing 30 square feet. Also, the building height, it's shown actually on the A1 sheet here. The building height is in compliance with the ordinance requirement for maximum height. Okay, I know one of the concerns, and it was mentioned in at least one of the reports, is the adherence to the design standards in the ordinance. So this building was designed to comply with those ordinance design standards, and there are 5 main criteria. The first criteria is the ability to reduce large building volumes, and we've done this by utilizing a variety of materials and different kind of elements to be able to break up the building into smaller pieces. Number 2 is that the entryways should be focal points. Again, we did that also with material, but also by providing these canopies to be able to show where these entry areas are located. Third one is either sheet or corrugated metal materials for facades are prohibited. Again, these are modern insulated metal panels, using them with a variety of finishes. Again, in addition to the split face block base, and this kind of configuration gives it more of a clean and contemporary look than you would have in one of those older kind of corrugated metal type buildings. Item number 4, criteria number 4, was that the mechanical equipment is to be ground mounted. There is no proposed mechanical equipment to be mounted to the facades or to the roof of this building. None proposed. And number 5 is that the facades are to be of the same quality and the same configuration all the way around the building. So you don't just have like a false front and the rest of it is not attractive. We've utilized the same materials wrapping around this entire building. And that's essentially the configuration of the building.
Also, I've had an opportunity to speak with my client and to reduce the variances My client has agreed to just do 5 bay doors as opposed to the full 6 that we've requested. So we will reduce it to 5 bay doors, which does reduce the variances. And so those bay doors that you see there, there's going to only be 5, and they're going to be evenly spaced within the same area.
All right, that's basically the presentation on the building. I'm open to any kind of questions.
No professionals have questions?
I did have just a couple items again from my report of October 23rd, 2024. I noted on sheet A1, it shows a potential future demising wall location in the warehouse area. Are there any plans right now for 2 tenants in the future in the building, or why was that note put on there?
That was an early discussion regarding the building. I believe since then, the decision has been made to have a single tenant. We understand, and I believe the applicant understands that if there was if there was a future decision to maybe split this, they'd have to come back before the board anyway.
So that would not be implemented
And
at this time?
that'll actually be removed from the plan.
Okay. And by the same token, I note on sheet A3, it shows 4 additional potential future window locations.
Yes, so on here, actually, there were a total of 5 of them. So the intent of that is to provide at the point of the time where the building is built, to provide the framing in the wall to be able to accommodate that. But the intent is to just cover them over. So that would be like a future, maybe they change the configuration of the inside and maybe they need a little bit more natural light at the ground level. It'll give them the ability to be able to poke openings without having to like reconstruct the whole side of the building.
So basically prep for an if and when in the future
If
without
ever.
having to do substantial structural work.
Correct.
Okay. And that's all I have on the building, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think based upon the architect's testimony, we've kind of clarified that this is a warehouse use. Majority of that space on the floor is warehouse use. I do think that there are some requirements, not that the architect needs to address, but that we kind of brought up briefly. Maybe we bring up the engineer again just to talk through them, related to some of the site design, not the building design, the site design. As far as the building design and the requirements, under the ordinance in the ED zone, I believe the architect's testimony did cover them, and I appreciate that you did cover all of those items. As far as the building materials, just one clarification, it doesn't permit exposed metal, regardless of the high quality of the difference. It doesn't allow that on the frontage of the building. So they have complied with that. They have used they used stucco on the front with the canopy, the hanging canopy. And then I do agree with the testimony that the construction of the rest of the sides of the building have taken into account what they used on the frontage, and that although it's not the same exact material, they have incorporated those design elements into the building and have given a significant consideration to the massing of the building by providing some of those design elements on the other sides of the building. Dave took a few of my questions about the future uses. And I think, my other question was related to the sign. I know it was noted that it was a self-illuminated box sign. So it's going to have a raceway behind the letters then?
It would be a box probably about 6 inches thick with backlit behind it with a sign plaque that goes inside of it.
Okay, so
With their logo on it.
okay. Aesthetically, I think the frontage of the building has been designed nicely. I think the box sign, I wish this was colorized to see how it looked, because I do think it could look better. And this is just an aesthetic comment, not a variance relief or anything like that. I do think pin-mounted letters or something like that could be considered by the applicant, just for aesthetic, to match the nice design of the front building. But again, that's just an optional comment. It was mentioned before by the chairwoman, the mezzanine, that this was, the mezzanine was a second story. So she had brought that up. I had kind of responded to that. I just, I'm not an architect. I'm familiar with building code, but can you just clarify that how the mezzanine area is classified per building code?
Yes, In the building code, if you're under a certain percentage of the floor that's below it, it's considered a mezzanine. In this case here, we're well underneath that criteria. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's like 1/3 or 1/4 of the floor below, but you can see we're well below that.
So
This
it's
would
not
be-
considered a story,
It's
correct?
not considered a story, it's going to
Okay.
be considered a mezzanine as per the building code.
Okay, thank you for the clarification there. I don't think I have anything else for this witness. Thank you.
Start with you this time, Ron?
Okay, thanks for the clarification on the square footage. So we're saying it's 13,365, and the sprinkler system will be determined by the construction official. In terms of the septic application, does that need to be looked at to make sure we've got the right number there? 13,000 versus 11,000? I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but just want to make sure they've got the right information.
Mike, do you want to answer that?
Essentially, the flow is calculated based on the different uses. And in this case, the commercial, sorry, I'm getting a little echo. In this case, the commercial use, which is the office space, is what's going to designate that. It was a larger office space, if I remember correctly, in the previous application. So the flow that was calculated before is kind of overestimated at this point. So it's sufficient, is what I'm getting at.
Okay, so you went over my head, I apologize. So look, I guess the question is, does the application for the septic reference 11,880 square feet anywhere?
I'd have to look at the actual application.
Could you, and just to make sure that whatever number is there is the right number?
But, yes, I can check that.
Okay, thanks. Then I guess I want to go back to the parking. So, and I think we may have addressed this already. So 9 spaces are going to be unstriped, but it looks like at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to change that to an impervious coverage.
That's correct. Yep,
Okay,
we've
thanks.
agreed. We'll bank those spots and we will make that grass or landscaping, whatever the board chooses,
Okay.
until it needs to be developed, if it ever needs to be developed.
Thank you. And again, appreciate the reducing the number of the bay doors to 5. Does that give you any flexibility to possibly look at maybe adding in 1 tractor trailer space? Because the way they were staggered there wasn't enough room, but if you were to go with 5 versus 6, is there now room to put 1 if recognize there will be tractor trailers coming onto the site?
Mike, do you think you can do with that calculation on the fly for us? We'll take some more questions and while he's doing that.
Thanks. Okay. Yep. And I guess the ingress egress, did we make a determination there if a waiver is required?
We didn't figure that out. We'll address that, I guess, at some point here.
I think we're gonna have to recall the engineer to go over some of the things,
Okay.
which is that's why I was gonna hold my questions to have
Understood.
Mr. Fisher come back up. Yep.
And the building sign, so it sounds like it's an internal, if I'm understanding it, an internally lit box sign.
Correct.
So which that's prohibited in the ED zone. So would you consider maybe looking at like a different option there, something that would be in compliance with the ED zone signage?
Yeah, the applicant's perfectly fine with a pin-mounted sign as was requested by the planner, Catherine.
And that's what, like a halo type lit sign?
Yeah,
It's like the letters are each individually mounted and then they just have light behind them. So it does create like a halo effect.
yep, that's, yeah.
Just to
And
follow up before we go on, that would come back to the minor site plan subcommittee?
If it was approved as part of this application tonight, then I don't think it would need to. I
But we're
We
open to
haven't
that.
seen it. It's something that they're going to do differently.
think it's gonna be the same size as what they're showing,
It
right?
will be the same size.
But what's it going to,
It was
see the
suggested.
design.
I
by the
actually
planner.
thought this was pin mounted when I first saw it. I didn't, the box, the line around it was so,
We can keep the box sign, I just heard the planner suggest the pin mounted would be better for this, based on what the architect had testified to. So I looked back at my client and he gave me the thumbs up. So, we'll do the pin mounted, and we'll, hope, if we don't have to come back before the board, that makes the most sense. But certainly the committee can review it, And if they want to maybe make a change to it, we'd be happy to, we'd be open to that.
Thank you.
The sign to us, we want to do what Sparta's looking for sure.
And I would add to that, that it would be the same size and same configuration, same location, essentially look the same, but not be in a box. It would be individual letters.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Ernie?
I don't have any questions.
I'm good. Thank you. Rob?
I have one question, but it's more for the applicants. Going back to the last meeting we had, given the amount of storage space that you're warehousing there, we want to talk about deliveries, but what about trucks bringing product out? Are you using tractor trailers, or is it more smaller box trucks to make?
So it's generally outbound trucks range from pickup size to smaller box truck, Isuzu.
So that was the idea behind the 6 doors initially, was that? Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm good. Mine have been answered. From the public, anybody? Yes. No? All right, thank you. I guess we're going to bring the engineer back then. Okay. We'll start with Catherine with the
Thank
extra
you.
questions.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming back up. Based upon the architect's testimony, there are some design standards in the ED zone, particularly for warehouse uses, that just need to be addressed. One thing I do want to clarify is that the development standards for those uses do have restrictions on the ratio of dock doors that are permitted, but we actually have a definition for a dock door and a drive-in door. Dock doors are elevated above grade so that a truck could back into it and just open up the back bed of the truck and offload stuff. These are at grade, so they're considered drive-in doors, which we have another definition for. So I do not think that they are beholden to the dock door requirement. I know that they have since adjusted their number of dock doors to kind of lower relief, but there is no relief required. So I would leave it up to the applicant if they want to. But based upon Ron's comment, I don't think it's a bad idea to potentially basically smush together the two loading spaces and create a larger loading space. Particularly because deliveries are going to be staggered. So if there's no need for 2 loading spaces, if you are going to adjust the at-grade doors, roll-up doors, then maybe a 1 loading space that's 10 by 50 would be more appropriate. If you could fit a 10 by 50 and a 12 by 30, you could do that as well, but I think it would be excessive.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're up.
You can jump in, yeah.
I believe that we probably would be closer to being able to allow for a 12 by 50, assuming that we're not going to evenly distribute the doors. If we're going to reconfigure them to optimize that loading space area, I think we can get close to 12 by 50, if not fully there.
Okay. And I think that, 2 loading spaces are required for the ordinance, but I would recommend that even just the 1 loading space at that larger size. So it would be a technical waiver, but it would be at the request of the professionals of the board to do that if the board agrees. And as far as the requirements, sorry, for the ingress and egress, just looking at this, it doesn't appear that there's an opportunity even for emergency route. This is a more modest sized building, but I don't think any of the neighbors have them, but I'll leave it up to the board of how they want to work with the applicant on that, and see if maybe if they want to leave it to the fire official to see if it's a requirement that would require them to come back before the board. And mostly I say that because the fire official is going to be the safety expert here, and so maybe they have some input on it in the future as a condition of any approval.
So if I could, Catherine, just for clarification, so if they were to leave the design the way it is, that would require a design waiver for the one egress instead of two?
Or variance,
Or
depending on how the
variance,
board
whatever
wants
the-
to look at it,
whatever
yeah.
the right answer is.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's a variance just by where it is in the ordinance. Yeah.
Thank you.
But that's all I had. I don't know if the applicant wants to respond to that, or if the board wants to chime in or give their thoughts.
I have no input on that.
Anybody else?
I have nothing else at this time.
Any other questions that we have? Just seeing if there's any more from the board yet. I'm just still looking at my notes. Okay, yes, the public is welcome to ask as well.
Based on the testimony we've heard, how can you overcome the requirement in the ordinance for the ED zone where it says under principal permitted uses, where did it go? Storage, buildings, and warehouse, which shall not include distribution centers, fulfillment centers. The testimony appears to be that that is what your intended use is. So how does that get overcome?
I think initially, that we weren't looking at this as a warehouse. If the board feels that this is in fact a warehouse based on what they're seeing in this application, then I think we need to revisit the application in a different light. But this was really intended to be a showcase for their higher end implements. And then yes, things would be shipped in and shipped out, but it is a showcase for the retailers to come and look at these products. That's what it's designed for. Generally, when you have a warehouse, and I mean, you know, I'm an attorney, so I'm not a professional in the sense that I can provide expert testimony. But generally, when you go to a warehouse, you don't have a showroom. A warehouse is somewhere where, you know, things are shipped in and things are shipped out, but they don't have clients come there and look at their product or material. That's what we're doing here. That's what the mezzanine is for. Someone comes there to look at these grills, to look at these pizza ovens, to look at the other fireplaces and things that they're selling specifically. And to accommodate that, they have this extra storage space in the building. And so that's where we were approaching this from.
So in your A1 sheet, the architect says building area is warehouse, 10,395 square feet, office showroom, 1,485 square feet. So it kind of feels like tail wagging the dog, calling it a showroom, but I guess you're characterizing it more as like kind of a commercial Costco building material for commercial clients. They come, they load up. It's like a retail showroom.
Yeah, and I think that's a question specifically for my client. I'll let him testify to that, but it sounds about right.
Just to clarify, no customers will be coming there, looking, ordering, and leaving with the product. The showroom is set up as a training facility we're 100% business to business. So it's set up as a training facility for prospective new customers or customers to learn our new products and things like that. So it is an integral part of what we're doing there. Generally, they would not be coming in saying, you know, I'll take one of those and leaving with it. That would not be the operation, no.
Well, but I mean, like you used Wingle as an example. So commercial customer is what I'm talking about. I'm not
Yes,
talking about an
they
end user.
would go and they would order a product and leave with it.
And they take a couple pallets.
Yeah, it would be like 4 barbecues to a pallet or whatever it is, yeah.
Okay. And load up their Mason dump truck and head out.
Yeah,
to the job.
most of the time it's in oversized vans and box trucks, but yes.
Okay.
And your architect had testified that the ceiling height had been increased from the last approval, I guess for, pallet stacking. so the floor area where the warehouse is, that's gonna be used for pallet stacking, right? For storage of product, right?
Yes.
The showroom is gonna be the only, the 1,400 square foot area is gonna be the only area where people are coming in to look at product, correct?
Correct.
They're not gonna go to the warehouse floor. Respectfully to Mr. Benkendorf, the plans show warehouse. What we're hearing is it's a traditional warehouse per the ordinance description of a warehouse, or the definition of a warehouse. This meets the definition of warehouse. It's a permitted use in the ED zone. To Ms. Derek's question, we also have definitions for distribution center, fulfillment center, which are specifically prohibited uses in this zone and some other industrial zones. Those definitions, this does not meet. Just because a site, a warehouse does distribute something, doesn't make it a distribution center. And that's been characterized and identified and recognized at the state level about warehousing and different warehouse uses. Distribution centers, per our ordinance, is really about the configuration of the building, the size of the building, the way that it's operated, the velocity, who it's going to, similar to, and fulfillment center, very similar situation. I'm not trying to, I know she posed the question to the applicant, and I'm really just trying to clarify. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's a warehouse. It sounds like the operations are of a warehouse. It's business to business. I'm glad we got the testimony that's not, going to like it's not a third-party logistics operator, which would be closer to a distribution center. It's a warehouse per the definition. We've hit on that the ED zone has certain requirements for warehousing, which I think might have been missed in the course of this, but we're addressing them at this hearings. But as far as I interpreted it, it's a warehouse.
Would you read the definition for a distribution center?
Sure. And you want me to read fulfillment center as well? Or just distribution? A distribution center is a building generally characterized by 1, dock doors on 2 sides or more. 2 is primarily used for short-term storage of product and relatively high-velocity distribution from the facility to multiple locations, including direct to customers. And 3, a higher ratio of non-tractor trailer vehicle traffic to tractor trailer traffic generated per square foot of gross area, and also high volume of tractor trailer traffic. And then fulfillment center definition is a type of building for third-party logistics that receives, processes, and fills custom orders on behalf of retailers that is usually freight for final consumption. Fulfillment centers are generally characterized by 1, high turnover of inventory, largely direct to customers. 2, may have the presence of multiple mezzanine levels. 3, require a higher ratio of on-site parking for employee vehicles and non-tractor trailer delivery vehicles, and also have a high volume of traffic. And then warehouse, I guess I'll just provide that one as well. The definition for warehouse is a building where raw materials or finished goods are stored, where the primary purpose of the facility is extended storage of a product and typically have a low volume of tractor, trailer, and non-tractor trailer vehicle traffic. Any building where storage of product is the primary use that contains dock doors on not more than 1 and a partial second side of the building shall be considered a warehouse, not a distribution center.
So I don't see it as a distribution center. But now I'm questioning based on the applicant's testimony, is it really a warehouse? So
Yeah.
what's the permitted use in the applicant's perspective that this would fall into? I know you said if we choose to view it that way, how do you view it?
I view it as the showroom, and yes, they're storing their product there, but again, it's a low traffic use of the lot.
So if it is a showroom, is that a permitted use?
I mean, not technically, no.
What's that?
Not
Yeah.
technically, no.
So do we want to get a read from the zone? I mean, how do we resolve this?
So the board can interpret its own ordinance here. You don't have to send it to the Board of Adjustment. If they were looking for a straight interpretation, that's where they would have gone initially, but they filed an application here, and this board can interpret its ordinance with respect to this application. But I will say, I just want to repeat the permitted uses in the zone include storage buildings, right? And warehousing, and you heard the definition of warehousing. right? So storage buildings and warehousing with wholesale storage. So would you say you have wholesale storage? You're dealing company to company, right? So I would think that that fits this permitted use definition of storage building and warehousing with wholesale storage. And then the retail portion, it's not really retail to the individual customer, right? It's part of the wholesale sale. So it's like it's accessory to having a warehouse.
There would be zero retail.
Yeah, there's no retail. I mean, the common sense, you thought of retail is that a customer comes into a store and buys something and walks out with it, right? And small things as well. So that's not really what he's described, I don't think.
So I'm still somewhat at a loss here because I hear all this, but then when I hear what the applicant's saying, I believe the applicant's saying it is not a warehouse, it is a display area.
I like to think about the logistics. If no one comes into the showroom for a week, what's happening? Is the back empty? No, there's product being stored there. The primary function of this site may have the intention of showcasing things to have people come in, but if nobody comes in, let's say they just look at it online, there's still stuff being stored there. There's still stuff being warehoused in 10,000 square feet of space, a significant amount of stuff. That's a warehouse to me. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't want to conflict with if the applicant wants to say what they think it is, that's fine. Let them say that. But my opinion to the board is that this is a warehouse. It's been labeled on the plans as a warehouse.
Yep.
We've heard some testimony that sounds like a warehouse. That's my opinion.
Let me ask you a quick question for the showroom part of it. I'm asking as the applicant. I think you justified that it's basically there for them to see a new product that you might have brought in, and there's some assembly required. So, right, a lot of times with these products, so they may have to.
So there'd be none of that there. It's for new products and it's for education on the products because some of they're a little bit more complicated than other, competitive units.
Right, you're talking about like those fireplace or grills that you put together and things like that.
Yeah, in particular, like learning the features and benefits of the barbecues we're selling, things like that.
Okay.
And I guess the way that I was trying to phrase it was that it is for storage. And we weren't looking at this as a warehouse, but we were looking at it as storage, and we've been saying that from the beginning.
That's what
So,
warehouse
right,
does.
So, but, well, yeah, but I guess the difference is there's more than just that use. That's all.
Understood. And there is a definition in the code.
Weren't trying to hide anything with what we were doing with the application. We're storing on site, we have these things
Yes.
showcased, and we also use it as a training facility. But we said that in the testimony.
And what I wanted to hear from the architect, what I was holding up was, I didn't know if the warehouse floor, the 10,000 square feet, was basically going to be staged like a bath fitter store or a kitchen cabinet store, or that, I didn't know if it was going to be a high volume storage of material, or they were going to use that as open space basically to show off the stuff. I wasn't sure from the testimony previously and from here and from the application materials if it was basically a big showroom. From the testimony and from all the professionals, it sounds like they're going to be storing a lot of stuff and also showing some of those things in the office space.
Will potential customers, will they be viewing the goods in the area that's designated as a warehouse, or is that strictly going to be boxes of stuff, or what?
Yeah, no,
Can
they
you help
will
me
not.
understand
They
that?
will not be viewing it there.
They're going to have pallets, so I
There
don't
will
think
be
it-
pallets.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Going still to the use. So what is the principal use? Because I don't understand how they can have two principal uses.
So a warehouse can have an office space associated with it. It's not like they have a dentist office in the front and a warehouse in the back. It's all one use. And I think the office is interconnected to the warehouse. So that's my opinion. If the applicant wants to speak or the board has any feelings on it, they can share those.
And the other thing to read would be a trucking terminal definition.
Oh, would you like me to read that? Would the board like me to read that?
What was the,
Trucking terminal. A place, it is defined as a place where products, goods, and materials are unloaded from one inbound source, such as a tractor trailer or rail car, and then either stored on a short-term basis or directly moved onto another outbound transportation source, and the primary storage of any products, goods, and materials occurs within a tractor trailer or rail car, may be referred to as cross-docking.
Does that definition have any reference to the shape of the building or the alignment of the dock doors?
That one does not. The only other one that does that I did not read was Parcel Hub. Would you like me to read that one? Well, a type of warehouse that typically serves as regional and local freight forwarder facilities for time-sensitive shipments via air freight and ground carriers that is generally characterized by a building with the following: 1, 150 feet to 200 to 300 feet wide, and 2, access to dock doors provided on 2 or more opposite sides of the building and up to all 4 sides. This may include tractor-trailer maintenance, wash, or fueling facilities.
So if you had to pick one primary use, what would it be?
If I can speak with my client, just to confirm.
I have a question. May I ask a question right now? If the applicant decides that it is a warehouse, do they have to go back and revise the application? How does that work?
A warehouse is a permitted use.
It's a permitted use, so,
right?
but because they didn't apply that way, does that matter?
We
No?
would just amend it to be that.
They can't have 2 uses, right?
So why don't we wait for them to come back so that he can
If they
hear
come
the
with-
answer and object to it if he wants to. But,
Would they need a
wait for
use
them to come back.
variance if,
Yeah.
okay.
Want to respond? If they were proposing 2 principal uses on the site, then yes, they would need a use variance.
Thank you.
If what? Then
If
need
they
a
were
variance.
proposing 2 principal uses on the site.
I went through our initial application to the planning board, and it specifically references offices, showroom, and storage. And the principal use of the building is storage because it's the largest portion of the building that's being used. But certainly there's office space and there is showroom space in accordance with what we've discussed this evening. That's been the testimony. If the board feels that we need a use variance for this, we would be happy to go before the land use board with that application. But if the board wants to act on it based on the testimony because they feel confident that the majority of the building is being used for storage and there is office and showroom space, then we'd be happy for the board to vote on it this evening. But it's entirely up to the board. If they don't feel comfortable moving forward with the application because they think it needs a use variance, we'd be happy to take it to the land use board.
Because it is principal use of warehouse and principal use of showroom.
Yes,
It's both,
right.
because that's what has been
Yeah, and
testified.
we're not trying to,
Get
you
one
know,
past us.
yeah, we're
No.
not. We're being honest. This is what we're using the building for. Yeah,
We're just-
absolutely.
We
And
just
we're,
were talking, if you came with two principal uses,
But how often are potential buyers coming to look at the equipment anyway?
again, my client could provide that testimony because he does it, but
I mean, preferably every day, but realistically, once to twice a week, we're having a pre-arranged visit. It's never, or very rarely, I should say, walking off the street. It's generally,
That's what I mean, because I think the testimony regarding the parking spaces alone tells us that this is more of a storage facility. It's not retail space. So they have pre-arranged appointments with, other wholesaling companies probably, whether it be Costco, whatever it is, or restaurant companies. They're not small items, it's not pallets of tissue paper. It's, bigger items, and hence the need for the space. It just makes sense.
Volume, I'm sure you're hoping will pick up, and you'll do more than
the
one or two.
building that they're currently in is around 10,000 square feet. That's why he purchased this property, thinking that he could build this building, and then realized he needed to come before the planning board because, one, he was a new owner of the property, and two, there's new requirements. And so, that's why we're here.
Could you, if you could, maybe one more time, just, let's talk about what's in the back in the warehouse area. So if I understand the testimony, it will be assembled assembled equipment or pallets of
Plus, go
equipment?
ahead, go back there.
it would be, bless you. I hesitate to say unassembled, bless you. I hesitate to say unassembled, but still boxed, primarily barbecues, inserts for fire pits, pizza ovens, all boxed, nothing assembled on a cart, ready to use like that. It would still be in its packaging, then have to be assembled, I guess, on site.
And
Bless you.
you would expect them to be stored there for approximately, on average, how long?
I mean, it differs to say, some items move, faster than others, but generally, if I'm not turning my inventory, twice a year, I have a problem. Thank you.
And will some of the customers, let's say they've come in and they've seen the product, and it gets shipped, and now they want reorders, they don't come back, they would do that online, or how would that work?
Yeah,
Because you want to turn it over. and you
Yeah,
want
we
to do it.
build showrooms in our customers' yards as well, in our customers' not yards, buildings as well. They just a barbecue on display for them. A lot of times it goes hand in hand with the paver displays that are being installed. So you'll have, maybe once a year they'll come by, an existing distributor or an existing customer will come by to have a 1 hour session and lunch on new products we're offering or changes to existing products. But the same customer wouldn't be there, week after week after week generally.
So this is, I think, where we're all getting at is, this is more of a sales room for retail than it is you call it a showroom, but I mean, it's really just got like you said, a training facility and a sales
Yeah, a training.
display within your building.
Correct, because what we found, our thought process behind it was, we're not selling, Home Depot brand barbecues, we're selling very expensive, higher end units that require an advanced sale. It requires the people to be able to speak to the technical aspects of it and things like that. So we find we have better success when we spend more time on education and training with the wholesaler of the product than if not.
is it like a Central Supply, Sparta Block without
Yeah.
trying to, I mean, essentially that, but at high volume?
Yeah, exactly, like.
No retail.
Like Central Supply could buy a barbecue there because they're an existing Nicolak customer. But it would, that as well as, you know, a home and hearth shop that sells, you know, fireplace units or wood pellets or things like that.
Okay, so it's just that next level.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do we go?
Well, I mean, the board does then have to determine if there's two principal uses, right? If the showroom, if you were to determine that the showroom is a separate by itself principal use, and warehousing is a principal use. But, or the board could determine that, you know, the showroom use, as we've heard it described, is accessory to what's being stored in the building and warehoused. And when you know, again, the permitted uses are storage buildings and warehousing with wholesale storage. And when you look at warehousing definition, it says that a building where raw materials are finished, or finished goods are stored, right? And where the primary purpose of the facility is extended storage of product. So the primary purpose of this facility, the board would determine that the primary purpose of this facility is wholesale storage, right, warehousing, and that the showroom portion is accessory to that storage in the building.
So when this was first approved, it was strictly warehouse, correct?
I don't know exactly what it was approved
had-
for. I just know that there were 4 tenants located in the building. What those tenants were doing, I'm not entirely sure.
There was office included.
Yeah.
I don't-
Storage and office, so then this is a brand-new use on top of the warehouse and storage that,
I don't have the copy of the other plans to say if they had a showroom or not. But as Rich said, and I want to just frame it this way, is we talked about two principal uses, but if you see the showroom as accessory and the ordinance, the ED zone permits those uses customarily incidental to the above. So if you find that this use is customary and incidental to what their primary use is, then you can consider it an accessory use.
But is that, is
Yeah.
a showroom a typical accessory for a warehouse? Would we want every warehouse
exactly.
to have a showroom?
No, and I guess the other thing to think about is, I always think about uses and impacts related to them, right? So a showroom, if, you know, it's gonna also store stuff, it's gonna have, you know, something on display, just the product that they have stored in boxes is gonna be assembled and put together for display, for people to walk around and look at. But they're not selling it there, so it's not a retail use, so retail would not be accessory to a warehouse, but would showing the product you have, it's not typical, but I think we have, I'm trying to think if we had another use. There was other uses that have exposed mezzanines, that have, you know,
I've seen offices, and I can get office with a warehouse
Yeah.
as an accessory use. It's the showroom aspect of it that troubles me.
It's just hard to
Is
set
there a way
precedent.
to go to zoning and say, yeah, can you give us your thoughts on it? And they could always refer it back to us.
So, as what I said before, they could have gone to zoning for an interpretation,
Okay.
right? But typically you do that, you know, for other reasons. You know, they're here, and this board has the authority to interpret the ordinance. If the board interprets the ordinance to mean that the ED zone does not allow the showroom aspect, then you would determine that they have a use variance issue, and they'd have to go to the zoning board for a use variance.
So Mr. Arlen, if I was to say here tonight, and just hypothetical, that showroom is an accessory use, I would then have to say any warehouse that comes before us that wants a showroom as an accessory use would be permitted.
So you would have to determine, in part, yes, but you would have to be, part of that would be to determine that the showroom that they have is strictly for wholesale
Understand,
selling,
understand.
right?
Yeah,
Not,
understand.
not retail selling to the general public.
understand.
It's simply to show other contractors, you know, what it looks like or how to put it together.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry, the other important thing is that you're not necessarily setting precedent because every application has to stand on its own.
Understand.
So the context of that could matter, the size of the showroom, the ratio of the showroom to the other portions of the building. Those are all other considerations that might come up.
Right.
So you're not,
Something, I think it was when the mayor and council were here, and we were talking about different, something with the use, there's something else in that ED zone that sells a product that is considered accessory.
We have Admiral Metals came before this board last year in the ED
It
zone.
wasn't something that came before the board. It was a question, and they used it as an example. I think it was about the cannabis.
Oh, I don't know
That's when
then.
they were here. We were talking about
Yeah,
cannabis.
yeah, there was some question, because I think I said, why can't we just, looking for retail, why can't we do it there? And they said, you can't do retail there. The only thing you can do was the
Distribution or
the
manufacturing.
wholesale of selling it, yeah, something like that. There was,
Yes, retail is not permitted in this zone.
no, I know that. But they gave a specific example of something. I can't remember what it was. Well, I don't know.
So
I'm torn.
I'm kind of at, here we are, and I'll speak for me, I won't speak for anybody else, and never will. I'm unsure, based on the testimony from the applicant that says it is a second primary use. We're saying, no, it's not, it's an accessory use. To me, I'd like to get some type of a clarification from zoning, because I don't want to get this wrong.
I'm worried about the precedent and also establishing the site. I mean, we want it to be successful. Seems like, okay, this is, some of us might say this is Goldilocks, it's showroom, it's the special case. But if something happens 10, 20 years, another tenant comes in there, I get that they're gonna have to come before a board, but there's this very specific building, very specific site designed for a very specific set of uses. And I don't know. I don't know how comfortable I am with that, but I'm also uncertain.
We don't have any idea what the future holds. This applicant may sell the building or, may move in 4 or 5 years, and then the new tenants will come before the board with a new application.
Right.
And parents requested, I look at the footprint of the building and to what Catherine said, as well, it's that we're not setting a precedent here because every application will be different based on the size of this accessory, and it's accessory. I look at this as a facilitator for a sale. That's all it is.
I
And
see there's a sales floor.
yeah, a small sales floor, that's it. And only because they have the space. So they went from 10,000 square foot of complete warehouse to now they have a little bit more space where they have some office space, and, every warehouse has offices in it, has to, okay? So now he's taking advantage of a little more open space to create more or facilitate more sales on a wholesale basis. And we're not worried about a retail section here because we have 9 or 10 straight parking spaces. That's it. So I don't know. I like the idea, actually.
I just want to share some perspective, and I appreciate Mr. Bleakley's comments because I think I didn't even realize how small the office area is. The office that they're proposing is about 100 square feet, which is if this showroom was an office, and I think back what if this wasn't a showroom? What if they had catalogs and people came into a conference room and they opened up a catalog and said, you know, this is the products we offer? Would you see it as the same way as them putting a backyard grill, you know, and a pizza oven in the showroom, and call it a showroom instead of an office with a conference table? When I talked before about, when I think about uses, I think about impacts. I think about like, what additional is this generating? Is it generating more employees? Is it generating more traffic? Is it generating, you know, something else that's related to the ordinance or related to, you know, realistic changes? And just putting into perspective, if this use was flipped to another tenant in the future and they had to come back before this board and they said, okay, we're using that showroom as a conference room with a big table, it's going to be our sales office, would you see it any differently? Would you see the sales office as accessory to the use?
But this one has an option for a demising wall, right?
Excuse me?
There was.
No, that's being
The architect
eliminated.
said that was from a prior plan, but this
Okay.
is one tenant.
So this also has 21 to 24 foot wide aisles. So just devil's advocate, if, you know, I get that there's a certain number of striped spots, but if it became in the future some other use, I could see off-site things like traffic being an impact where people could park all along the building, load up. I understand that's very unlikely.
But that's an issue for the next tenant.
Okay.
Right.
And you can also create a condition that no one's allowed to park on the side of the building,
Okay.
you know, only for loading and unloading temporarily. So
Yeah,
from an
I
enforcement.
just want to point out one other thing in the ordinance that for conditional uses in the ED zone permits, as a conditional use, accessory retail sales. All right, so it anticipates some sales being done in this zone as an accessory to a warehouse.
Every warehouse has office space, and most have call centers that have space too. So, you know, the fact that we have a really, what I think is a very small section of the total footprint dedicated to a showroom, it's ancillary, that's it.
But, you know, so accessory retail sales, I think we said that's not what this is though, right?
Not
It's a showroom.
retail.
Right.
It's not, yeah.
We
it's
couldn't.
not-
Right, it's
Conditional
not a
use it
retail
anyway.
sale, which I
Right.
think is,
Not retail.
The whole,
I understand.
you know, more impactful.
So let me go to the professionals and, you know, just, this is where I may have to really count on you folks to help me understand this better. So again, so I hear the applicant saying two primary uses, one of them being a showroom. And then I'm looking at the ordinance and I'm not seeing how that falls in, but I think you both are disagreeing with me. In your professional opinion, would you see this as a warehouse? Or do you see this as having two primary uses?
I think there's a third option, which is what
Okay.
Rich raised, that there's a primary use with an accessory use within.
Okay.
So that's my opinion,
Okay.
based on what I provided, it's like hypotheticals or, you know, anecdotal ideas, is I don't see the showroom operating on its own. It cannot function without the warehouse, really.
Definition for accessory use?
Uses that are incidental to the permitted uses.
And this is that.
and you could condition it to limit the traffic, off-site traffic impacts potential.
You could limit it that there's only parking allowed in the designated spaces. We have banked parking, potential banked parking, so that if parking does become an issue, they'll have to construct those spaces, which should be a condition of approval. For the other side of the building where the drive-in doors are, you can condition that there's no blocking of those doors, no parking permanently in front of those doors, just temporary loading and unloading. And I think that should capture those. And
Applicant has no objection to that. And also he did already testify to the staggering of the deliveries. And there's going to be no overnight parking of any trucks in that back area.
So Catherine, if I understand, so your feeling is this is a permitted use with a permitted accessory use?
correct.
Okay, Mr. Holler, what would your?
I agree with that. I think the primary use here is warehousing. And I think the showroom that they have is accessory to the warehouse, just to show that product. Yeah.
Okay, so can we prepare a motion?
But do we want to get testimony on the traffic statement,
There's nobody, oh, you did it. It said Dykstra on it.
Yes,
we may
I
have
was
come
the
back
author
another
of it.
time, but-
And to
But
simply put,
no, we can't take any new testimony. That would have passed at 9:30.
I don't even know what time it is on my watch time. I don't even know.
It's a little after 10.
We need
Yeah, and I
to-
think the board's policy is no testimony after 10.
Right.
No new witnesses after 9:30.
We still have other business. I think we have to.
Yeah, I know. We need to move on.
What are we?
What is the
we looking
board's
for?
feeling of whether we need to, it did say it was low impact and it didn't need a full study?
I don't think we need to hear a traffic study.
Okay, so then can we prepare a motion?
Sure.
I just want, sorry, clarify one thing. The relief that we had cited previously that came up over the course of testimony about the development standards for storage and warehouse uses, the tractor trailer parking is only really related to the dock doors. So because those are not dock doors, there's no required truck parking. I just wanted to clarify that there'd be no waiver relief from that. And the other condition that was agreed to by the applicant was basically the creating one loading space that's 10 or 12 by 50 rather than the two, which would include a waiver for the number of loading spaces. I just want to make sure those are on the record.
All right, so if I miss anything, you'll let me know.
I'll try.
All right?
I'll try.
So I've been trying to keep those notes. All right, so if there were a motion to approve, it would be for preliminary and final site plan approval with variances for lot area ratio for parking, where 33% is requested versus a maximum of 25% being permitted. Variance for maximum impervious coverage at 51% requested, where a maximum of 40% is permitted, understanding the testimony that with some modifications in the plan, the banked parking area and the relocation of the dumpster area, that impervious coverage may come down, but certainly it would not exceed the 51% requested. The number of parking spaces is a variance. They are proposing 11 in the striped parking areas with an additional 9 as banked area. It would be green banked spaces where 36 are required. There'd be a trigger mechanism for developing the banked parking. Typically, the owner could certainly trigger that if they felt on their own that they needed parking, but I think an appropriate trigger is also if, the town is saying, parking as an issue on the site, the town could require the developer to, or the owner to install the banked parking, okay? Okay, let's see.
One EV ready spot.
Yep, okay, there'll be one EV-ready spot designated on the revised plan. There's a variance for a 24-foot wide drive aisle where they're showing a 23-foot wide aisle in the one-way section of the parking area. There's they don't satisfy the required minimum landscape area ratio of 40%, but with the new calculation, as was discussed, we anticipate that it'll get pretty close to 40%. There's one means of ingress, egress to the site where 2 are required. There are waivers also with respect to parking space size at 9 by 18, where 9 by 20 is required. And of course, the testimony was there's also a 2-foot overhang on that 9 by 18. Okay, so unstriped parking is no longer a waiver, right? Because we're not doing that. And I think that was it on the variances and waivers. There are several conditions. It would be all of the conditions that are set forth in the Township Engineers Report and the Township Planners Report. I may touch on some of those as we go here, but if not, it's all of those in those reports. So conditions also include that deliveries would be staggered to the building, so only one tractor trailer would be on site at a time, all right? The generator spec will be approved by the township engineer regarding satisfying the township noise ordinance, and then the applicant will apply for minor site plan to the minor site plan committee for approval of the generator. The stormwater management manual will be recorded with the county clerk's office. Got the one EV-ready parking space. I don't think you show the landscape area ratio on the plan, but we're going to revise that and show it on the plan. Going to reduce lighting to 3,000 Kelvin versus whatever's on that plan now. I wasn't sure if this was something the board wanted, but we discussed the use of pervious pavers. Is that going to be a condition? Dave, you think that makes sense to include pervious pavers?
I think the final outcome of that was that the impervious was going to be reduced by those bank parking spaces being basically put in grass. The impervious coverage variance, if the board's agreeable, being granted so that they could pave that if in the future they had to. But based on our understanding of the DEP regs, the pervious pavers were not going to
Doesn't
be used.
impact it? Okay,
Not gonna
so
be
it's
used.
not a condition?
That's
to
right.
use that. Okay.
Do you have the lights timed?
I'm sorry?
No,
Timing lights?
Did you put the timer on the lights?
I might, I'm bouncing around a little bit,
Well, all
because
right,
it
it
kind of
was-
came up in different,
Just, it
Yeah.
was in with the temperature of the lights.
but I'll put it right here. So lights will be
7:10.
timed to be,
Either, do you want to do them like an hour before you open, or, I mean, they had sunrise, sunset, so,
Dusk
but,
to dawn.
but you're closing at 4 PM?
Right.
Um,
Want to do an hour before, hour after, and then security lighting as needed otherwise?
Can we see the security lighting?
I don't know where
It's not
it's-
going to be egregious.
I'm assuming it's just gonna be like one of the lights on the back of the
Okay.
building.
okay, so I'll do 1 hour before opening, 1 hour after close, with the exception of security lighting. That would typically be adjacent to the building or attached to the building, right, at doorways. Right. They'll reduce the sidewalk size, I know we talked about this, right, by 2 feet? And you'll eliminate it past the unstriped parking. So once we get to the end of the striped parking, there's no more sidewalk.
Can I just clarify that?
Yep.
There's a building entrance at the end there. Is it gonna be sidewalk removed after the entrance?
So it'll be after the back, it would have been after the back end of the,
Rear entrance.
after the back end of the land bank spaces.
So it's a little bit
Yeah,
further
kind of
past the
explain.
striped.
It would have been here, but I think we could probably even go as further back as to end it at that doorway.
So end at the door,
At
not
the
the striped
doorway?
spaces,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's just additional impervious to be green.
And you're going to put the dumpster storage on the pervious, or impervious? So it's not
I
double
think you already
counted?
said that one.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to relocate the dumpster to a paved area. We're reducing the 5 bay doors, or is that still?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Fine.
And they're not called bay doors?
For drive-in doors.
Drive-in doors.
You're going to create a loading area then, that larger 12 by?
Get into it, I
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let him finish. because
Sorry,
it's
sorry.
quick.
Yeah, because that's just
You
how,
shot
that's,
it
you know, my notes are just as the
I was
night
just
went
trying to
on,
do it in
so-
order. We talked about the overhead
Yep.
doors.
We're going to eliminate the future demising wall designation on the plan. Use a pin-mounted sign and submit the sign for approval to the minor site plan committee. Create one loading space. right? Do we have a size for that?
12 by 50, correct?
Yeah, 12 by 12. That's what it says on this thing.
12 by 50? Okay.
And just to be, I just want to be clear on that if I can. We're going with one 12 by 50 in lieu of a 12 by 50 and a 12 by 30. Because 2 was required. 2 loading.
Yeah, I had just one.
That was
No,
if
just
you
the
had
one,
dock
just the one.
doors.
Yeah.
So then
right.
that would be an additional waiver than just the number of loading.
Correct.
So it's one space, not two, is what we're saying.
One space that's 12 by
Larger.
50 to accommodate a tractor trailer, and then they're gonna move the drive-in
Right.
doors
Well,
down.
I thought they were gonna retain one of the spaces as it is and then make the second one bigger.
I think I'd offered that if it was possible, and I'm not sure if it's possible or not.
I don't know if it's possible right now. I just can't give you that answer. There's too many unknowns with where the doors, how the doors best fit. I would have to work it out with the architect.
So if, want to leave it as a condition that if possible, that the 12 by 30 will be retained and the 12 by 50, and then as a resolution of compliance, if it comes in either way, it'll still be clear by the way the resolution reads.
Got it. And then also, two more, I think. No parking shall be permitted in areas other than the striped parking areas, and no overnight parking of trucks on site. All right? That was all I had.
Everything. All right.
Did we have,
Very good.
did we have no outdoor storage in there?
I was just gonna say,
And-
we agreed to no outdoor storage.
And no outdoor storage.
No outdoor storage.
And only one tenant in the building.
Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to approve
Generator. Are we gonna hear the
as
generator?
read by the
He already
attorney.
said, yeah. he
They'll
did.
come to the minor site plan subcommittee.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Jeanette Burke,
Yes.
Ron Day,
I'm gonna abstain.
No, you can't.
I can't.
Sorry.
Yes or no?
Yeah, you're here. That's why you get the
Yeah.
big box. You had to decide.
So, we still have discussion or no?
Sure.
So the discussion is, again, is there a way just to go to zoning? Say, do you think that this is an approved accessory use?
No, I think that's this board's job right now. Yeah,
So, but I think your feel is that it's okay?
it is.
And Catherine, your feel is that it's okay?
Correct.
Yes.
Robert Bleakley,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Ernie Ragsdale,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Robert Otto,
Yes.
Chairwoman Joan Furman.
Yes.
All right, congratulations.
We put you through your paces, gentlemen.
Jinx is even more
Equally tough
great.
for us.
Thank you for bearing with us on that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Rich, for getting it.
No one said this job was easy, right?
While you're packing up, I'm going to keep moving because it is getting late here. We have updates.
Have a good night and get home safe.
Tonight, first is Town Council. I don't believe we have anything because we don't have a representative. Environmental Commission, I think Rob is going to do that.
I'll be quick. We heard a presentation on lead exposure. Lead's everywhere. We went through NPS Holdings, this one. So previous comments were just stormwater capture, light pollution, and invasive non-native species. So, and we talked about dark skies and lighting, so that's why I was trying to inject a little bit of that into this. Earth Day celebration planning continues. Next speaker is going to be Plant This, Not That, Lisa Chiarello, Native Plantings, Salt Watch, and then just yeah, I believe the green amendment was passed with town council, so that was another thing. That's about it.
When is the plant that's not that?
Check the website. March
I
13th.
just asked what date the plant this not that is.
March 13th, 2025. Plant this, not that. It's gonna kind of be a nice little primer about native plants. It should be on the website, but March 13th, 2025, 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Here?
Oh, right here?
Yep. Will be, yep.
Okay. The minor site plan subcommittee, we do have an update. We're finally settled a little bit with new people, and Rob Otto has agreed to be the chairperson, so thank you. Congratulations. No, congratulations, if not you.
That's right. That's right. Hold this thing.
And we have several applications that were referred, or will be referred to the full planning board, so that's occurring. And the master plan subcommittee is scheduled to meet on March 6th. We'll have further updates as that occurs. Okay, we don't have any minutes today.
Do we have a resolution here?
We have a resolution. Which resolution?
The two from last time I haven't done yet. I'll have them for your next meeting.
Okay, yeah, so we'll have them next time. There's nothing today.
Yep.
And we'll open to the public for comments on matters not on the agenda and matters not related to a hearing on an application for development.
Just quick, you just approved an application with 5 variances, including impervious coverage and parking, major issues, 2 waivers and conditions. You just got the news that the vet hospital lawsuit went through, was approved, and then wasn't even challenged with an appeal. Just needs to be considered.
Thank you.
Variance.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.